Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat. And you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
Carolina with Columbia down the way.
And the sound effects that you heard come from none other than, there we go, our man in Brooklyn, one agent underscore 70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
I was about to say, excuse me, live viewing, folks, while I fix something really quickly.
I was about to say, if I'm coming in hot, I just have to make a small change.
No, it's not you. It's the your video wasn't coming in for a second.
Oh, okay.
But now we've got it fixed. It's cool. This is the Comic Book Chronicles. You can find this here podcast on the Coastal of the Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You could also find us in your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal of the Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. You could also find us recording live every Thursday night, 9:30-ish p.m. on the YouTube channel of The Click Nation. That's youtube.com/TheClickNation. Or twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles.
Make sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit the notification button so that you know when we are on.
Yeah, smash that like button. But yes, folks, we are here tonight for another romp through the comic book world. We're going to start off with actually.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about this week, folks. So bear with us. We're going to do our best to keep it moving tonight.
Exactly. We're going to start off with the recap of Book of Boba Fett, Star Wars Book of Boba Fett, Episode 4.
So spoilers are incoming. So if you're not willing to be spoiled on Episode 4 of the Book of Boba Fett, please fast forward from this point on, or at least from the point of the spoiler bell. In 3, 2, 1, hit it. I need to get a drop of Slick Rick yelling out, "Hit it!" on the show.
That can very much be arranged.
Of course. I got to make a note of that. I got to jot that down.
But yes, so the Book of Boba Fett, Episode 4, aka The Gathering Storm, is the name of the episode. And we basically start off with back to Tank Boba, which probably should be a figure. I don't know, maybe not. But we see Boba in the fight, in the back to tank. We flash back to him in the past again, on his Panther, riding through the Tatooine seas, the Dune Sea, and he's rolling up on Jabba's palace, which at this point is in the hands of Bib Fortuna. So he's kind of casing the joint because he's going in there for some reason that we don't know about just yet. But he pretty much talks to his Panthers like, well, no, too many guards, we can't go in yet. Let's roll. And then we see him at night, around the campfire, eating some food, giving his Panther some food, and we see a flare pop off in the distance. And I did not catch this, but apparently the music from the Mandalorian chimes in at this point. But this is pretty much where it picks up from the Mandalorian episode where Din Djarin is going after Fennec Shan. So I guess spoiler alert for that, because we'll get to that in a second. So Boba goes off to see what their flare was, and he comes across Fennec, who's been shot at the end of that episode, not by Din Djarin. We should point out if you hadn't seen it.
Right.
And then he picks her up, takes her off. We saw that. We saw the footsteps going towards and pick him up and taking her off, and that was where the show ended. Then I do remember that part. So he takes her off to try to save her, and he goes to this mod bar. You know, the same mods that give people cybernetics, like we've seen a few different times. And I didn't pick up on this either, but there was some strangely not necessarily Star Wars type music being played in this at this point in time when he goes into it, and we see him go in, put Fennec on the table, and basically tells the mod doc that she needs help. Who was kind of resident at first until he plunked down some credits, and then he turns around and is like, "Well, you should have led with that." We come to find out that is none other than Thundercat, which
and not Lion-O.
Exactly.
I'm like, wait a second. You know what? Honestly, I had heard rumblings that there was a musical artist named Thundercat, and we'd heard, I've always heard that as kind of like as a passing reference for like younger kids and whatnot. It's like, oh, you think you're a Thundercat now or something along those lines. But I did not know that there was in fact a musical artist that went by this particular name.
Right.
So it's an electronic music artist.
He's a producer. He's a producer singer. Like he's worked with like Kenny Loggins and Michael McDonald.
Michael McDonald.
Yeah. So he worked with some folks.
Oh, he's an American bassist. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a bassist.
I had no idea. I'll tell you that much.
So yeah, so a lot of people might know him from his song. Well, probably didn't know him from his production work and his solo work. But his song Thundercat Durag, Dragonball Durag is a hit. You should take a listen to it. You might like it. But yeah, so and actually that just reminds me of a possible title for this here episode. But we'll get into that later. So yeah, Thundercat's the mod doc, and like I was like at the time I was like, wait a minute, I knew this dude looks familiar because of the braids and whatnot. I was like, but I couldn't place him, and then it wasn't until like the credits rolled and I was like, oh fuck, that was Thundercat. So, but anyway, so we cut through a scene where Thundercat's fixing up Fennec Shand, then get to the end where Boba's like, well, you're not gonna close her up, and he was like, and cover up all this beautiful tech, or beautiful machinery as it says. So he does it, and which is why we see later on when we see in the Mandalorian, she kind of covers it up. So she we cut to back in the desert. Fennec wakes up. She wonders where she is. Boba tells her who he is because she asks. And she's thinking she's getting taken in, but as we know, Boba's not trying to do that. He wants Fennec's help to help recover his ship. And then I think this is when they go and scope out Jabba's palace again, and with some help with Fennec, kind of scope the place out using some tech that she had with her. I believe this is also when they finally get into doing the plan. We find out the first utterance of the new name for the ship formerly known as Slave One, which is called the Firespray. Because as they were going in to retrieve his ship, he mentions it. Well, I think before he mentions it, actually. I mean, before they go in there, he mentions it.
Yeah. No, what I was gonna say is I think when at some point, just before they go in there, he mentions it. So I think you hear it twice.
That might be true. I can't remember, but
I can't remember. I honestly can't remember. I actually did watch this when it came out. In our time yesterday. So, But in any event, it did jump out at me when he mentioned the fire spray, because I know we've talked about it in the news,
Right.
so it wasn't a surprise, but it definitely leapt out at me when I heard it.
I'm kind of glad because I know I was watching an Easter egg video on this, and it was like, you know what, it would have been better if they had made if he had mentioned it in some grand fashion,
Hmm.
But I'm sort of like, no, that's fine. Just let it roll the way it is because that they didn't need to do anything else for it. It's like, no, here's what it is, and you know. They don't need
Hmm.
to
All
because
right.
it feels forced. Because it feels forced when they kind of do like, oh, well, I named my fire spray this because of da 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 da. Just try to justify the new name for it or whatever the case may be. And they don't always do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I
Oh,
was about to say that's way more meta than we probably need.
exactly.
So,
But I think you were going to go on. I was going to say that before they went in, Boba let his Bantha go off and find other Banthas and have baby Banthas and all that kind of good mess because he didn't need it anymore.
right. All right. So let me jump in and handle this section of the episode. So now we have a heist because Boba Fett needs his ship, as we just mentioned, and that ship happens to be in storage, really in storage. It's not in like an active hangar. It's definitely in storage at Jabba's palace, or Bib Fortuna's palace.
Right.
And at this point in the flashback, Fennec has a little scout. A little scout droid that's in the shape of an orb that she stores in the butt of her rifle, that basically flies out into Jabba's palace and does some scouting for Fennec and Boba. And at just before going in, Boba sends away his bantha that he'd been riding around to Mos Espa, and had been basically their mode of transportation at this point. And he basically says, "Go make little banthas," which is funny.
Yeah, which is what I just said. So,
So Fennec at this point uh, says, that might be a little early, and Boba says, "Well, either I get it or I die."
right,
Uh, he also tells Fennec at this point, and always bear in mind that in this part of the flashback, this is before they're able to track down Boba Fett's armor, before Boba Fett and Fennec Shand make their grand entrance into the Mandalorian. So um, we also get a little bit of a hint here about the change in Boba Fett's character, where he says to Fennec Shand, "I'm tired of working for idiots who are just going to get me killed." I'm paraphrasing here. Uh, they get, as usual, I think I've seen a joke about, I think it was in the second season, it was regarding the second season of The Mandalorian, about how it's so convenient that they have 3D maps of everywhere they need to break into, because it is Star Wars after all. So
mm-hmm.
now they have a little 3D holographic map of Jabba's palace that the orb, the floating orb, has taken, and they realize that there are way too many guards running around Jabba's palace, or Bib Fortuna's palace at this point, and that they have to sneak in and time their entrance between guard duty shifts. And when they
Right.
get in, they're able to break into the kitchen by going in from underneath, and there is a bit of a fracas that results when they break in through the kitchen.
Wait,
And
I'm sorry, before you go any further, because this is from for the gamers out there, this is when it turns into a stealth mission. Because even with the 3D mapping that it did, and saying that and the way they end up getting in, trying to go through the palace, like gamers who would pretty much know, just like, yeah, it's a stealth mission, so they pretty much got a good go in there without being seen and heard, which as
right, well, it's a heist.
well,
You know, it's a heist, but yeah, it's a more of a stealthy heist, at least at this point. There's no dragging of vaults at this point, right?
right,
So ultimately, they're able to get into the kitchen, but the fracas breaks out, and um, unfortunately, what they're not able to do is get out without being undetected, because their noise basically clued the kitchen droids into calling for a rat catcher droid, and it's the rat catcher droid that comes in and and runs around and basically does in fact ultimately get itself turned off. But I think the guards have been alerted at this point.
Right. So worth noting real quick is that it is the rat catcher is the little bunny-eared droid that we've only seen up until now in the Clone Wars. Because and so this is the first time in the live action. So I was like, okay, I was kind of surprised to see that, and hopefully they'll do some more with it. Because pretty much most of the other droids, including the sous chef, are droids we've seen before. So, because some people were saying that's one of the kitchen droids was either the same model or the same one that was talking about taking R2 to the sail barge in Return of the Jedi. But I don't know if that's actually true or not. But anyway, continue.
So they finally make their way to the hangar where the former slave one, now Firespray, is stored, and they get into a confrontation with some of Bib Fortuna's guards, and there is a shootout. They ultimately get onto the Firespray and are able to make their escape after some really close quarters flying and some, close in flying, where they're basically scraping up against the sides of the hangar in order to free up the Firespray's weapons in order to get out of there. And Fennec uses some quick thinking to disengage the lock on the hangar door so that they can get out. And ultimately, they're able to get out. And
she blows up a Gonk droid for no reason.
Well,
I mean, it was a reason, but it was that poor droid didn't deserve that.
Well, it's not exactly the Gonk droid is not exactly offensively capable. So, I understand where your thinking is on that. Ultimately, Boba Fett says, I've got some scores to settle now that they have regained Boba Fett's ship. And their first score is to track down the biker gang responsible for raiding the Tusken Raider village. He literally flies up on them from behind and shoots them all in the back.
I love that.
It's a pretty striking image. As the former slave one, now Firespray swoops in and just goes zappity zap, nailing all these bikers for and getting some vengeance for the Tusken Raider clan or tribe that had adopted Boba Fett earlier in this series. Next up, we have Boba Fett looking for his armor, and he takes the Firespray to the Sarlacc pit that he had escaped from. And it doesn't exactly go according to Boba Fett's plan, because he in fact wakes the pit up, and the Sarlacc tries to pull the Firespray into its gaping maw. And luckily, Fennec Shand is able to figure out a way to literally drop off, and you'll remember this proximity mine from Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, and also, well, I guess he also uses it. Well, yeah, basically.
Yeah, from Attack of the Clones. You'll remember this is the proximity mine that whatchamacallit, Jango Fett uses against Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones when Obi-Wan is pursuing Jango Fett in this very same ship. So Fennec Shand is able to get that proximity mine to drop into the Sarlacc pit and basically blow it to Kingdom Come. And apparently that is the end of at least this particular Sarlacc. Right. So
hold on, stop right there. So that whole part, I was thinking like, well, we know what's about to happen here, because we know good and well that thing's not was it dead at this point, or we felt that way. So I was actually halfway surprised that Jabba didn't just shoot the thing on sight, just blow the thing on sight, because he knew his armor was gonna. Because the reason why he was looking in there because he was looking for his armor. So like Agent 70 said. But I was like, he should have just blown the thing up, because he knew the armor was gonna be, if it was still in there, it was going to be it was gonna make it out of there. I mean, if he blasted the shit, but it didn't. So
Right.
Which,
It's interesting that he would think it was in the Sarlacc pit because he made it out of the Sarlacc with his armor.
But I guess he was so disoriented at the time he didn't think about it. Because I
Yeah.
kind of bumped on that too. Because I was like,
Mhm.
he made it out of there. So why would he think it was still there?
Right. Why would he think that the Sarlacc would be drawn to it because there's nothing living in the armor?
Right.
That's really what I was thinking because ultimately he digs himself out of the Sarlacc, parallel to the Sarlacc. And why on earth would he think that the Sarlacc would like reach out of its pit and snatch onto the armor that, even though he was, he woke up without it, presumably would have been laying nearby. So, it was a little bit of faulty logic, but hey, it's a Star Wars show.
And he got his revenge either way. So at the end of the day, justice happened.
Right. So as this particular sequence winds down, Boba Fett again finds some wood on Tatooine and starts a fire. And
I know, right? Yeah, I was like, wait, you're in a desert. Where the hell is this coming from?
right, and he tells Fennec that we're smarter than them. It's time we took our shot. And he basically says, he's basically looking for a ride or die. And Fennec says that his time with the Tusken Raiders has made him soft. He counters by saying that it's actually made him stronger and that he's learned that he's nothing without a tribe. And
Family.
I will hand it off to Roddykat at this point.
Family.
That's right.
It's all about family, folks. So yeah. Nice. So yeah, so now we're cutting back to the present when Boba wakes up from the back of the tank, and presumably this is people are saying that this might be the last flashback that we'll see. So I guess that's the case. We don't know until the next one. Oh well, yeah, but first we get the flashback to the end of the Mandalorian season 2, where we see Boba killing Bib Fortuna and taking the throne. Which I'm actually kind of we'll get to that at the end of this. So yeah, Boba comes out of the tank. The droid says, "Hey, congratulations, you're healed." And I guess that's the moment. Like I said, we find out that maybe that's the end of the flashbacks, but we don't know. Not necessarily the case, but but presumably so. So Boba says that he and Fennec should go into town. And Fennec's like, it might be a bad idea, but they do it anyway. So they go back to that cantina where Jennifer Beals owns, who I can't remember her character name, but she's a Twilight. We'll get to that in a second. We see Black Chrysanthemum sitting at a table, just sitting there, eyeing some Trandoshans. For probably
her name is Garza Fwip.
Thank you.
It sounds way too much like a Spider-Man sound effect, but yeah.
Thwip, yeah. Mm-hmm. So Chrysanthemum's just sitting there chilling with his drinks, eyeballing some Trandoshans. And at this point,
we know why he's eyeing these particular Trandoshans, because they're Trandoshans. Right. And exactly, if you are a fan of wait, was it Rebels?
I mean,
Clone Wars.
Comic, Clone Wars, Rebel. I mean,
Clone
Wars definitely, and it's been in the comics also. Wookiees and Trandoshans don't like each other because Trandoshans hunt Wookiees. And
exactly. What I was going to say is there are specific episodes that highlight that particular unfortunate relationship between Trandoshans and Wookiees.
Right, and if we remember the first episode of this show, there was a Trandoshan that came to Boba Fett with a Wookiee pelt.
Right, offering it as tribute.
Mm-hmm. So Black Chrysanthemum's in there, like I said, watching them, and he's like, "Fuck it." He goes and takes out all of them, and has one of them ready to rip his arms off before Jennifer Beals comes up and say, "Hey, you've made your point." And then she kind of reminds him how great he was, kind of stroking his ego, trying to calm him down, which almost works. And kind of calls back to his times in the pits and stuff from the comic books and whatnot. And she even kind of says this is a more civilized time, kind of paraphrasing Obi-Wan's use of that term. it's basically saying that, hey, the type of brutality you're about to use is not good anymore. But he rips off the thing's arm anyway. And Boba Fett's at the door, just sitting here watching this, and he was like, "Well, hey, it was worth a shot." And Chrysanthemum walks out the door, having done his deed. It's okay. Don't worry about the Trandoshan. They're lizards. The armor grow back. Don't worry about it. So Boba goes after Black Chrysanthemum to recruit him. Surprisingly enough, because he needs more muscle. He says yes, or he agrees apparently, because the next thing we see is the meeting of the three families. Inside Boba's throne, where there's a big dinner table, and Boba's Fennec is talking, basically telling them that, hey, listen to Boba Fett, and because we know the Pikes are coming in and trying to take over and this and that and the other, and of course there's some at least some well, there's not necessarily dissension, but people are like, well, why should we listen to you? The type of situation. And that's when the Rancor that they're sitting right above kind of interrupts the party and kind of wakes everybody up, and I'm like, oh, okay, shut up. So Boba says, look, here's my proposition. I'm going to take care of the Pikes. Don't do anything. Don't side with the Pikes. Either join with me or don't side with the Pikes. Stay neutral or join with me. And they're like, all right, we're going to stay neutral and let him take care of it, basically. Which I'm surprised because I've noticed some videos like somebody mentioning the handling that situation the way Jabba would have, because the dude that talked back to him would have been killed by Jabba. I'm sitting here like, well, yeah, but he's trying not to be like Jabba, and that's why he's trying to come to them, respectfully, and not do the same thing. But regardless, after this whole meeting is over with, Fennec and Boba are talking, and it was like, well, we got to prepare for war. But we need more muscle. And Fennec's like, well, credits will buy you a lot of muscle if you know where to look. And apparently, again, we hear the music from The Mandalorian comes in and come in, which I did not catch this again. And
you didn't hear it? Like you didn't bump on it, right?
Oh, I surely did.
You're just so used to hearing it when you're watching some Mandalorian armor running around on the Disney Plus show, right?
Right, basically. So, but I didn't pick up on it at that time. And then the episode ends.
Right.
So presumably from what people are saying, we might either we're gonna get Din Djarin back again, and or probably some of those other Mandalorians that we I would assume anyway, some of those other Mandalorians that was in season 2 of The Mandalorian may possibly.
Oh, you mean
back off. And
yeah. Oh God, what was her? Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan, yes. Bo-Katan, yes.
Right. And I laugh when I see that the author of the particular summary that we're reading also mentions, I forget Timothy Oliphant's character's name. I just remember him as the guy with the good hair, because he takes off he takes off Boba Fett's helmet and he's just got the wavy locks, and I'm like damn, that is not a hat head.
Exactly, untouched hair, just I'm like, yeah, how you do that? So yeah, maybe he might show up again, but and it would kind of make sense, but well, it would and it wouldn't. I don't know. Like he's still on Tatooine, and even though Din got the armor from him before, so he might not even know about him. I mean, Boba Fett might not even know about him because he got his armor from Din and not that dude. So we'll see. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think about the episode?
I thought it was finally good and I agree with the commenters who think that this might be our very last flashback episode. And I think that maybe we could have done without the flashback trope and just told the story in chronological order. And I think everyone would have appreciated it more. And then we had the twist that Boba Fett wants to basically rise from his station as a bounty hunter. You know, he wants to become the employer rather than the employee.
Right.
And that is, I think, what has been missing from the first 4 episodes so far is what is Boba Fett actually, you know, like what gets Boba Fett into the idea that, what gives him the idea that he can become a crime boss.
Right.
You know, basically he's been taking all of his contracts from crime bosses.
Right.
So he's just like, you know what, I could do your job better than you. And, you know, he basically jumps on the opportunity that's presented to him because Bib Fortuna is the weakest replacement that of Jabba that possibly could have been. So
I am curious about that because we know from the Mandalorian that the bounty hunters have a guild, and I part of me kind of wondered, like, yeah, it could be a crime family, but it could be, I mean, it seems more like a crime family than what I'm about to say, but it also felt like, well, if he's getting, you know, Black Sand, he's getting Fennec, he's probably going to enlist the Mandalorian and probably some other folks, you know, for some more muscle to take down the Pikes for that reason. But like, I'm wondering if there was no reason why he wasn't like trying to replace the guild or bring the guild back or something. Not that the guild, I think the guild is probably still around somewhere.
I was about to say, at this point, wasn't the guild? Well, forgive me, I'm not nearly as versed in Star Wars lore as Roddykat is, but wasn't the guild still active in the Mandalorian?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So then, no, but then, but just allow me this. So at this point, we're under the understanding that the guild was in effect when Vader hired all those bounty hunters, right, in Empire.
Yes.
Right, was still active. So ultimately, I don't know if the two cannot be, you know, can't coincide, because I think all the bounty hunters would agree, saying that, well, you know, I'm taking these jobs so that I can get paid and keep my ship in working order. But some of them just aren't. You know, some of them are just straight up killers, and Boba Fett is at least thinking that he is more, that he can be more, that he can make, you know, that he can run, you know, if not a crime, you know, if not become the Godfather, at least become one of the top lieutenants, you know. So he's found the opportunity to become Don Corleone. You know, he's trying to become Michael and take over for Don Vito.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Like they could and very, because I don't necessarily know. And this is, you know, and this is like well after, because we don't even know how Vader, you know, we know Vader has had bounty hunters as an employee. Whether he got them from the guild or not, we don't know, honestly. But
right.
and we do know from the Mandalorian that, yeah, that's still around. We don't know the state of it because it's not been brought up since like early on in the season 1 of Mandalorian, so we don't know. But you're right, they could coincide the same thing, and yeah, you're right. It seemed like, you know, that may be more of the case than.
Right, he's just trying to kind of do better for himself, and you know, we see now how his experience with the Tuskens kind of shaped that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you know, to this point he'd been flying solo, essentially, maybe teaming up with bounty hunters like the, you know, like with Black Chrysanthemum. I mean, Chrysanthemum. You know, Chrysanthemum in the comics, right? You know, and that's comic book canon. But up until now, he's basically been a lone wolf looking for bounties, and you know, as far as we've seen, and now he's looking for, what's that?
Well, adult-wise, because remember in Clone Wars when he was little, he was.
Oh, that's true. That's right. He was working with a group when he was a kid. Oh, I remember that. Oh God, Bratty Boba Fett was annoying.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, he was annoying, man. So. Yes. I'm kind of sorry that Roddykat brought that particular memory back, but in any event, I think that's probably, you know, I kind of agree with the criticism that if they had kind of if they had foregone the flashback route and done this in a chronological route, this would make more sense. You know what? It's a storytelling trope.
Right.
It's a storytelling trope. I don't think it takes away from the story at all, but some people maybe didn't like the presentation. That, I think, might be a fair criticism, but I'm enjoying it. I don't understand why people listen, you can't please everybody, but I think there's some unfair criticism that this show has gotten. I think it mostly centers around the fact that Temuera Morrison's not really uh you know giving us a lot of character work
Yeah.
in his acting.
Yeah, and I feel like it's also, people have short attention spans and like, oh, there's got to be action, 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 action. So the flashbacks could be, even though there was some action in some of the flashbacks, could be seen as kind of slowing down it, quote unquote, getting somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not the case, because the flashbacks were kind of parallel to what was going on in the present day for the most part. And like you said, it is a trope, and yeah, I thought it worked fine. I didn't have any problems with it either. So, but like I said, we are in a time of short attention spans and yes, I'm talking to the youths out there, and some
Utes.
and some older folks. So let's face it, some vintage people don't have the greatest attention spans either. But so I feel like some of the criticisms kind of fall to that more than anything else. But that's just my opinion. Doesn't it matters not. For the most part, it's been going on, and yeah, we'll basically have to see, because I think we have 4 more episodes after this.
Yeah, I think so.
So we're at the halfway point, and whether there's any more flashbacks or not, and whether it quote unquote picks up as some people would like to say, like, we'll see. Like, even if they did it in chronological order, that I don't feel like that would have made it any better or worse for some people than how it was presented now. So, anyway, any other thoughts before we move?
No, that's it. We can move on.
All right, cool. So with that, folks, we're going to move on to a very, very brief mention of Peacemaker episode 4.
Right. It just came out today, in the day of this recording, so it's a little unfair for us to go into as much detail as we did for Book of Boba Fett, because a vast number of people will probably still be a little behind on their TV watching, and we want to give people the chance to watch Peacemaker episode 4 and form their own opinions.
And we really didn't talk about 1 through 3 all that much either, so.
Right.
But basically, I'm like, I don't know. This, I believe. Wait, was this? Yeah, this was episode 4 of that, and I believe this also has 8 episodes. So we, as Agent 70 said before the show, we've got a couple of revelations at the outset of this episode. I don't know. I'm gonna stick with it and see where it's going, but I'm like outside of that, I'm like, I don't know if I care that much. Like, the show's kind of fun.
Right.
It's definitely adult situations in a lot of it. In parts of it, so you don't want to definitely still don't want to bring the kids to this one. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I don't care about the character that much, or a couple of people around them maybe, and the reason I'm sticking around is because I know there's a couple of revelations that still hasn't come out within the show.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm kind of curious as to what they do with, but outside of that, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a thing. Now, there was one revelation though that was, or at least from what I'm concerned, was like, yeah, I'm not surprised that this is the case, and like, I kind of felt like I knew it. Like, it's not like the show really spelt it out that much, but you can kind of almost see it if you paid, not even if you paid close enough attention, but it makes sense once you see the
right. And it was definitely, and the revelation that Roddykat is referring to is, I think, far more heavily implied in this episode, especially in the latter half of this episode, given how this particular character is acting. So I thought that wasn't the biggest surprise, but I thought it was well done. I think that and this entire, if I'm not mistaken, this entire series, every episode was written by James Gunn, so his fingerprints are all over it, and you can see that he has a particular idea in mind for, and I don't know how faithful this is to the original origin of the comic book Peacemaker, but there is a redemption arc in here for the Peacemaker character that that comes from a tough childhood, and kind of overcoming the influence of a parent that may have an outsized and bad influence on the kid. And it's interesting. I'm kind of copying this particular observation from Fat Man Beyond. Um, the episode that dropped, the audio episode that dropped today, I was listening to it um, just before just before we started recording, and they mentioned something I thought was interesting. There are two characters in this show who are both dealing with the ramifications of being the children of powerful forces in the DC universe.
Right.
One of them is Peacemaker and the other is one of his handlers. And it's an interesting parallel story that we're seeing unfold, and seeing how the other characters in the handler group kind of bounce off those particular relationships. I'm still getting a kick out of James Gunn's wife, who he enjoys writing some fun things around. She's definitely easy on the eyes, and the computer guy, the Greek guy, his last name is definitely Greek. Is sufficiently annoying enough for me to hope for bad things to happen to him, and that's what I keep hoping for as the episodes unfold.
Yeah. He had a slight comeuppance in this particular episode, but not to the extent that I would agree.
Right. So I'm constantly hoping for this computer guy to get smacked around. So some of it did in fact occur in this episode, but yeah, you know what? I see what's going on. I don't really care for it. Like, it's not something I particularly have like a huge affinity for, but at the same time I appreciate the good execution. And that's really, I think, where my appreciation for the show comes in, and what Gunn is doing with these characters who, the vast majority of us are not familiar with at all.
Right. And per James Gunn's usual fare, the music slaps.
Yeah. It's the vast majority of it is music I've never heard of.
Right. Exactly.
But he uses the music and the soundtrack to great effect.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to, because unlike you, like said, yeah. So I can't remember his wife's name's character.
Jen Holland. Harcourt.
Harcourt, yeah, I knew it, yeah. But Harcourt, yeah, I feel like they're also trying to set up something like that I hope doesn't happen, because there's the whole okay, Peacemaker likes her, or at least wants to have sex with her. One of the cases, and it seemed like they're kind of inching that forward. But also okay, who cares about that? And I know. And this is probably particular to me, but it's I'm kind of more curious about the whole thing with Adebayo.
But I said, what I said is that's one of the two big, character storylines.
I know. So, but that's what I'm saying. I was I'm kind of more curious about what's going to happen with that, as opposed to this other stuff that they might be thinking about. But and also Economist needs to get smacked up a little bit more. So we will see what happens with that. And yeah, they're even trying to make Vigilante, or this version of Vigilante, kind of sort of sympathetic in a way, which I'm like, he's also kind of annoying.
No, they make him more annoying because actually in the original comics he's fairly sympathetic. He's definitely one of those characters that loses his way. If I recall, they're in comics. They're actually in comics. Him losing his way kind of goes further when I think he has his own series. But in the New Teen Titans issues where he debuted, he definitely was on that road, on that dark road, in those issues. So it's definitely a different characterization of Adrian Chase than I'm used to. But ultimately, we've said it before, some of these characters, some of these B, C, D list characters are adapted so that that they each fit into the role that they need to play.
Right, and yeah, and I know I think I saw an article about I think that version of Vigilante might be worse than the Arrowverse version, which I'm like, how is that even possible? But
Mhm.
so I don't know. Anyway, that's that. Like I said, it's on HBO Max. You can check out the first 4 episodes if you want to. This is not an endorsement of it one way or the other. But if you like the Suicide Squad and you care about that character or John Cena or whatever, then hey, go check it out for yourself if you wanna. Moving right along, we're gonna get into some comic books of the weekend. Boy, do we have a lot of them. First off, we are going to go to She-Hulk, number 1 of 5.
Alrighty, 1 second.
As I pull up covers here.
1 second. All right. She-Hulk number 1 is written by Rainbow Rowell, with art by Roger Antonio, who I am not familiar with, but does an exemplary job on this issue. Colors are by Rico Renzi, who we are familiar with, and he does, in fact, do an exemplary job on this issue as well. And letters are by our favorite lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. So we open up this issue with a very tough kind of, it's not a midlife crisis, but it's definitely a career crisis that Jennifer Walters finds herself in, based on where the character has been in her adventures in the pages of Avengers. She's kind of regained the ability to take the form of She-Hulk in a less Hulk form and more of a She-Hulk form, but at the same time, her legal career, even though we've seen her practicing in the pages of the Fantastic Four, her legal career is still kind of in flux because of her adventures up at Avengers Mountain and beyond. So that is where we find Jennifer Walters at the beginning of this issue, and she runs into essentially one of her main antagonists slash members of her personal villains. I'm sorry, her rogues gallery, and that character, so aptly described in this issue, is a former supervillain. And that former supervillain, and I appreciate the nod to continuity here. That status as a former supervillain is on kind of shaky ground, but thankfully, this supervillain and She-Hulk reach an understanding, which I thought was novel. Yeah. I thought this was an extremely novel approach to the rivalry that has developed over several years, several decades now, between these two characters, and ultimately where they leave each other is in a better place. What I really appreciated about that is that it's far more about the characterization than the action. It's far more about where these characters actually find themselves now in 2022, as opposed to just rehashing, the various bouts that they've had over the years. We find out next that Jennifer Walters has teamed up with a small solo practitioner who basically hires her just so that she doesn't have to face Jennifer Walters in court anymore. And that's just another part of Jennifer Walters trying to get back on her feet, or at least reestablish her law career after the events of the Avengers, the events of her life in Avengers. And we also get a nice little flashback here to a stage of life that she was in when she was essentially staying in a spare apartment owned by Janet Van Dyne. And, there's a little bit of a positive turn in Jen Walters' story, only to be upended at the end by a reveal that I did not think was going to have as much of an impact on her as it did. but it's a cliffhanger nonetheless at the end of the issue.
Right. So, okay, so a couple of things here for newer people coming to She-Hulk. This probably won't give them that much context. I mean, unless you like us have been reading well, one, knowing about the character before now, but also reading what's been going on with the Avengers, because part of me is like, yeah, okay, it makes sense, but it also kind of weirdly doesn't in a way, because like, yes, her you know, what happened in the Avengers was a thing, and yes, she had a job with the Fantastic Four recently, and it's a weird thing to where they put Jen back in the place that we have seen her having, and I'm saying that having read older She-Hulk volumes, like we've pretty much put her back in the place where she's been in the past. Like, yeah, it's still uh kind of in a place with her law practice, but because sometimes they kind of give her varying statuses on that. Like in a couple of volumes, like she's always have cases, and sometimes I'm like, oh, she just kind of not necessarily getting up on her feet, but kind of, as this book kind of goes on to say, kind of reinventing herself again,
Mhm.
as it says. So she kind of finds her in a place where she's just kind of starting from a place and trying to build back up. And this is kind of a similar situation. That aside, yeah, I don't know. It feels kind of weird because like knowing what happened in Avengers and knowing that she's got the job with Fantastic Four. Like, yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean that she's just gonna be balling, but it was a case that. And it wasn't even necessarily a big case with the Fantastic Four stuff, because obviously she was on trial at one point in Avengers, and now practicing law, in the Fantastic Four. It's like I guess they kind of balance themselves out, but doesn't necessarily
Right.
put her in a place
And we
where
also, you know what I was going to say is we also don't know exactly where that Fantastic Four story falls in
exactly,
continuity with regards to this story. So it
exactly,
could be after she starts working with this former adversary, kind of joining a solo practitioner in practice.
yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing that's kind of like, okay, yes, because you would think at the very least that case would kind of put her somewhere a little bit better than where this is suggesting she's starting off at. But I can say this is a good starting point nonetheless, whether you knew what was going on, you know, with recent events or not. And I don't even know if they're even going to call that much attention to it in the course of these 5 issues. But that being said, like I said, I enjoyed it because it is definitely kind of calling back to old She-Hulk volumes where she's kind of starting off in a place, um, and kind of possibly getting into some stuff, and yeah, having going back to that old apartment of Janet's, and kind of starting to reclaim some semblance of her life. In that is I guess is a starting point. That thing at the end, I know they're gonna probably explain that um next issue, and if you know enough about the character that shows up at the end and their relation to She-Hulk, uh kind of makes sense if you know that, but even if like me you do, it's like, well, where or why or how is this even happening, which again they'll get
Sure.
into next issue, I'm sure.
Right. And I feel like this is the precursor to a tie-in to the Fantastic Four, because the
Yes.
Fantastic Four, the Reckoning War storyline, I believe, touches upon both of these characters, both this character in the cliffhanger and
Yes.
Jen Walter She-Hulk.
Yes, that I believe that has been in the news and such. So yes. So yeah, between this miniseries and that, I assume I guess that's going to, or this is going to get kind of go into that at some point. But yeah, like I said, it was a good first issue. It's always good seeing this version of, well, I would say start seeing this because she's not necessarily like classic She-Hulk yet, but because she kind of still teetering on a part of it. But it's always good to see her back to some sort of a status. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the Winter Hulk look, and the roided Hulk look was, the thing was what it was what it was, but it was also kind of annoying for a good stretch of that Avengers run.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's always good to see the Jade Giants is back. So we'll see where this goes. And this was a particular click of the week for me. I will say that.
No, it was good. I definitely appreciated it, and I thought the true highlight of the issue was the scuffle with the first character
Right.
that appears. I thought that was so well done,
Exactly.
and just depicted art wise, story wise, everything.
Right, and like you said earlier, I did enjoy the way that was kind of handled, because it's like, yeah, it's not the same old thing as what it used to be, and they are in a better place than what they have been, and it was like they're almost kind of friends, I guess.
No, just friendlier rivals.
Right.
Not friends, but definitely, especially given the way this character was portrayed in recent issues of the Hulk
Right.
and of Gamma Flight.
Correct.
Yeah, Gamma Flight.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, but like I
So
said,
those are some big hints as to which character we're referring to.
yeah, but if you know anything about She-Hulk, because she's not like she's got a big rogues gallery in the first place. If you know enough about her story, you kind of know who it is.
Right.
So, but that being said, like I said, but yeah, there are. I still maintain looks like they are, like you said, they are friendlier than what they were. But like it could potentially end up being maybe more friendlier than that. Not necessarily romantic. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just saying. But definitely a different dynamic than what they were in the past. And as you said earlier, it's like, yeah, it's kind of an update that probably is kind of needed personally. Because that can't keep happening all the time. That got old even back in the day.
Right. But even so, there are characters that go through this a lot. We're talking about specifically about Ben Grimm and the Hulk.
Yep.
As a prime example of how sometimes those particular one-on-one fights, have evolved over time, especially I'm referring to how their confrontation in the pages of the Immortal Hulk played out. We're still going to get the action, but there's going to be more characterization given how, even with Marvel's rubber band continuity, there is a long history with some of these characters, and it makes sense that their confrontations would evolve into, more character-driven beats as opposed to just, splash page like, oh, this is great. This would be a nice, easy way to get a couple of pages in. And have the artist have fun.
There seems to be more of an understanding between them than just them being rivals, punching bags to each other situation.
Yeah, no, I definitely give Roger Antonio a lot of credit on this, because I definitely was, I became a fan while reading this. So
I feel like or at least I know have. That name has come up on a few books in the past, and I'm blanking on which ones. I would have to go look at their storage. But yeah, their art is good, and Rainbow Rowell, I kind of hit the ground on a good foot with this. And I know you read her Runaway, so I know you're more familiar with that.
No, she's definitely good. I'm just looking at Roge Antonio's Twitter page. So yeah, he's worked on. I guess he's going to be one of the artists on X-Men Red.
Oh yes,
that's upcoming.
Mm-hmm.
He's done some Conan the Barbarian, some Injustice Year Zero. He worked on Hellions, and he's worked on She-Hulk.
There we go. I think it was Hellions and Justice Year One. I think that's where I know him from. So, and anyway, like I said, check this out. We know for the other reason why she's probably getting this book is because she's got a show coming out, a Disney Plus show coming out. What I think this year or next year, one of the two. So that's not slight the character, because it's always good to see She-Hulk in a book personally. So so for whatever reason she's getting it, regardless of, I mean, I'm kind of more sad that it's a mini series and not an ongoing, but it is what it is, and these are the times. So we can move on though. I guess. Wait, do we want to do? Actually, speaking of people with a mini series, let's do Silk.
All right.
Or did you read Silk? Actually, I don't
No,
know.
I did read Silk.
Okay.
It's no problem. I read it.
Okay.
No
I didn't look at your
worries.
yeah, I didn't see. I didn't look at your stuff to see what you read.
No worries. So Silk is next in the list. And speaking of nods to continuity, the writer Emily Kim, artist Takeshi Miyazawa, colorist Ian Herring, and VC's Ariana Mayer or Mar on letters do a good job of continuing the story that was begun in the previous Silk miniseries and picking up essentially right where we left off and giving shout outs to what happened in the previous miniseries with regards to um, uh, events in Cindy's personal and superhero life. I really like that we get a callback very early on in the story. You know, we get a little bit of an out of context, uh, an out of context kind of flashback for the first 2 pages, and then we get right into where Silk is now and where Cindy Moon is both personally and professionally. And as I said, we get the callbacks to her therapist and and all of the shenanigans that happened in the previous miniseries when she had to change therapists, as well as her current gig as a reporter for the what is it called?
Threats and Menaces.
Threats and Menaces. I was about to say, I know that it's more of an online thing, and I really appreciate that some of the characterization for J. Jonah Jameson with regards to his interaction with Cindy Moon is still on point. It's still right. You know, the voice hasn't changed. I love that Cindy says something and Jonah is dumbstruck and says, "You really are the oldest young person I know." I really got a kick out of that. But the overall plot of this is, I think it lends itself to a solid miniseries that's and the plot, the danger that Cindy's facing is, I think, rooted in her Korean roots. And it helps that the writer is of Korean descent. Her name is Emily Kim, and we'll learn more about this. I guess it's the witch character in the next issue. We only get a little bit of a tease as to what this witch can do and what the witch is capable of. So that is, it's a good first issue of this miniseries that does, in fact, like I said, make good nods to previous continuity, so we know exactly where we are and exactly how we're picking up from the last miniseries.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because especially with the recap page, if you read it, because if you don't know the character of Silk, Cindy, and Cindy Moon, that recap page pretty much gives you beat for beat, everything up until now, like going back to the beginning, or when she came into the universe and up until now. Like I said, the major beats, not everything, but because there's not a whole lot. But
yeah, like the big highlights, because it's we've seen the character in supporting roles in both the Amazing Spider-Man book as well as the Agents of Atlas book. So those are included, as well as her two previous solo books.
Right. And yeah, and
three. I was about to say 3 previous solo books, because before this was a miniseries and 2 attempts at an ongoing.
Right. So yeah, that being said, like I said, you can kind of jump in on this and kind of run because of the recap page. Like if you didn't really know anything about the character, and if you wanted to go back to the other stuff, hey, go for it. I like I said, yeah, it was definitely a good issue to start off with. It definitely felt like a kind of continuation of the last volume, especially with the type of threat that she's dealing with, and also in her personal life, kind of, she's not necessarily adjusting. She's pretty much adjusted to how things are now, given given where she's come from. But also she's still how she kind of hits upon things that kind of that kind of not necessarily astound her, but it just kind of like gives her pause, like hashtags and influencers, and which I wish something more had happened to that influencer than what ended up happening. But you have to read the story to find out what I'm talking about on that one.
Right.
Her being so young, but like Jay Jonah says, it's like the youngest older person that he knows. And actually, on the Jay Jonah part,
oh no, the oldest young person.
Yeah, excuse me, the oldest young person that he knows. Yeah, because I definitely know some people. I've known at least 1 or 2 people like that, and I was like, how do you even know that as young as you are, or how is that? How do you not know that as young as you are?
So I definitely appreciate Taka Miyazawa's art on this, because it's a consistent, there's a consistency to his art, and it's just something that I definitely appreciate. We've extolled the virtues of his art over the years, but I just really appreciate how consistent his art is, and not to typecast him as like the young female protagonist artist, but it definitely, he just does a good job at this, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Like same art team as the last volume of Silk and Miss Marvel and other things. The Takamizawa and Ian Herring has done together, if I'm not mistaken. Matter of fact, yes, I'm not mistaken, for sure. But so yeah, good stuff. There was something else I was gonna say about this. Oh, I felt like the J. Jonah part. I almost felt like he was gonna say, "Bring me." Well, he did say, "Bring me pictures of." Almost said, "Bring me pictures of."
He almost said it. I hit on that too. I absolutely picked up on that.
Like, bring me pictures of Spider-Man type situation, but with Silk, and I got a kick out of that.
So. You know what? Before we move on to the next book, this is one of those times, and this is where my noting of how well they remind us of the continuity and nodding to the previous miniseries and the previous series is, this makes me I mind it less that this is a miniseries as opposed to an ongoing, because we're not necessarily getting a filler story in between, but rather we're just getting a break, in publishing.
Right.
It would be nice if this was ongoing. We'd love it if it was ongoing, but at the same time, as long as they're staying on top of what happened before and making note of it and incorporating it, part of me is okay, despite my normal misgivings about having these, various miniseries come out when, we think that a character is deserving of an ongoing.
Right. Yeah, and who's to say? I mean, stranger things have happened to where, miniseries do end up turning into an ongoing. So it could happen. I can't say I'm holding out hope for it, but I would love it to be, because it feels like Age of 7. I do enjoy this character, and I think she is deserving of another ongoing. So who's to say? Y'all read the book. Maybe we should get themselves up. Maybe it'll happen.
Exactly.
All right, moving right along. I guess we'll stay in the Spider Corner and do Amazing, and then we can consider going to Rapid Fire after that.
Sure. So, Amazing Spider-Man number 86 is written by Zeb Wells with art by Michael Dowling, who does a really good job on this issue, I thought. Colors are by the color artist is Brian Valenza, and letters are again by our favorite lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. Take it away, Roddykat.
So, after the events of last issue, Ben found out that the Beyond Corps, has confirmation, I would say, that the Beyond Corps doesn't have his best interest at heart, and they're just using him. Like Doc Ock gave him the drive with all the information on it, and he kind of takes it in the most Ben Riley kind of way, because we see him at the beginning of this in therapy. In another therapy session, but flashbacks to a previous mission, to where he kind of handles things the way he handles things, and it, while it does work out, there's there is some collateral damage to it. But the rest of the issue is pretty much him being real stupid. Because he's basically talking to this therapist and is like, well, you work for Beyond and you're one of them, this and the other, and I got problems with them. One, to be fair, neither one of them knew they were being recorded, but two, it was like, okay,
well, they should have,
yes,
and that's what was funny.
Exactly, that part, one, and two, even the therapist was like, oh yeah, no, they're supposedly, the therapist was like, well, I don't trust them either, and they're supposed to not be, they give me some sort of a leeway or reign in these sessions, and come to find out that that's not true. But a little unbeknownst to them. So even still, with all of that, and with what Ben has found out, you would think he would have still kept some things close to the vest, but no, he pretty much sings because he's thinking like, oh well, since this therapist says she's not with, she might be working for Beyond, but she's not with them. Kind of like in the situation he is, I guess parallel, supposedly, that is okay. Like, how would you even know that she's telling the truth to you? Like, damn it, Ben, you're stupid. So then she goes about it, and Maxine's dangerous here and all of this stuff in the background, and that's pretty much the crux of this issue. And on the other side is we see his girlfriend Janine, I guess, trying to get out so she could do whatever, and so she's got that Marcus dude, not necessarily hostage or something. I don't know what's going on there, but I guess she's going off to do something because of what Ben gave her. I don't know if she did. Did we see her? Because he whispered in her ear. We saw that, but did she actually look at the drive or?
No, because what the art that we saw was that she was handed the mask.
Correct.
And this issue shows that what was being handed to her was more than just the mask.
Which we
kind of, that's where, right. But it wasn't explicit. In this issue, it was made clear.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so now she's trying to get out of the building. So I guess she could either do something with that or find some answers. Something, I'm not sure what her part on that part, but that's pretty much the two sides of this issue.
Right. They're basically looking to rebel. Both Janine and Ben Reilly are looking to rebel more openly and outwardly against what Beyond has in store for them. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, at the end of this issue, we're starting to see some of the ramifications of that.
Right. So,
especially on Ben Reilly's side.
Right. And so, as I told Agent 70 before we started recording, there is a Ben Reilly book. The start of Ben Reilly's solo book started this week. I did not read it, and this issue almost got me to reading it, but I said no, I'm not doing it. Don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So, and whether we don't even know whether it's going to even whether it's tying into this or not, or this is like going off on something else. So. Who knows? Maybe one day, maybe I'll read it. I don't know. I doubt it, but just like I wasn't really trying to feel it because I just want to get away from this Ben Reilly stuff.
Well, it's probably in the news about what's been announced over the past week. Did we talk about it last week?
I don't remember.
I have lost a lot of sense of time. So
yeah, I know. I guess you saying that April solicits have come out for Marvel as of this recording. DC's not out, but there's some stuff out, so we got some news on some stuff. So
got it.
So yeah, we can kind of move on now. Do you want to do Miles and then go do Rapid? Since
that's fine.
Spider stuff.
That's fine. Let me click over to Miles.
Because actually, there's not actually much to this issue.
No, because it's really, let me just get the creative team out of the way. I'm literally clicking through my books. So this issue, Miles Morales, Spider-Man number 34, is written by Saladin Ahmed, with pencils by Michelle Bandini and Luigi Zagaria. It's inked by Michelle Bandini, Elisabetta D'Amico, and Luigi Zagaria. It definitely feels, we've said this before. I've said this before. It definitely feels like some of these art teams are coming out of Italy more and more often. We've seen some on the DC side too, and I remember Jim Lee living in Italy for a little while before coming back to the States. So it's interesting that another crop, at least it seems like there is a crop of artists coming out of Italy as well as South America. That's where we've gotten a lot of other new up and coming artists in comic books. Colors on this issue are by David Curiel, and letters are by VC's Corey Pettit or Petit. I think Roddykat was about to go into the story, so go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, there was not much to it. So, for some strange reason, this is a Beyond tie-in, and that is what the basically the current stuff going on with Ben Reilly and the Amazing Spider-Man. What's going on there? There is not that much of a tie at all in this. Like, yes, Miles and Ben met in Amazing, and basically this is where Miles got the sense that the Excessor is still around and doing stuff. That's pretty much it. There's really nothing else tying this to what's going on in Amazing. So, despite the fact that it says a Beyond tie-in on the cover, it's really not much. But the crux of it is Miles and Shift are going after the Excessor because they found his headquarters, and they're fighting their way through it. They meet up with a lot of resistance, but they persevere and get through it. And at the end of it, it looks like there might be a showdown coming, possibly 2 showdowns.
Right.
And that's it. That like I said, that's pretty much the gist of this episode. Like, it was a good action issue, but there was really nothing, despite what it's saying, tying it to what's going on in Amazing.
Right. Just before we move on, I had something to make note of. It's a term that I had not been familiar with before, but I know that it is a video game term that brings in some real world branding, and that is nerfing or nerf.
Yes.
Where a character's powers can be downplayed or reduced in order to fit into at least in comic book storytelling, to fit into the story and to serve a storytelling purpose.
Yep.
I feel like the Infinity Stones / gems have been nerfed to a certain extent, because the gem that is at issue with the character that has been literally imbued with the stone, right, has become one with the stone. Apparently, or at least it's implied, that this character has reached a limit. Whereas when these stones were introduced in the pages of Silver Surfer, I'm not 100% sure if this stone was in particular was introduced there or if it was somewhere else. But the characters who protected these stones, the former elders of the universe, right, were pretty damn powerful.
Yes.
Right, and were not quite, they didn't have, shout out to Emperor Palpatine, unlimited power. But it was close, because they could basically hold off the Silver Surfer, who wields the power cosmic.
Okay.
So it's just kind of weird that, they would imply that this character, who is literally imbued with one of the Infinity Stones / gems, that that they would have some sort of limit that Miles would be able to take advantage of.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did. And I was like, yeah, and and I kind of rubbed up on that too. I was like, like I've seen this character, and and like you said, like, yeah, I know that is the case. I'm sitting here like, that something on me, which kind of made me think like maybe this was not, like, I was thinking for like 2 seconds, like maybe that wasn't the character, but still the Excessor testing Miles and Shift in that, because that's what, because that didn't make any sense to me. So I was like, and then so for those that don't know, the person being whatever that Miles is going up against is called the Excessor. They kidnapped Miles and was basically torture testing him,
Mhm.
and Shift also another side of this by putting them through a whole bunch of stuff, and they kind of reiterated some of that stuff in this issue. So that's what kind of made me think it was like, and he did have this character in their employ to kidnap Miles in the first place, if I'm not mistaken. Which ended up happening. So yeah, like you just having said, like it's kind of weird that this pretty powerful character had a limit that was reachable by Miles. Not saying Miles is no slouch, but let's face it, he's not nowhere near the power set of an Infinity Stone. He's not Captain Universe either, so
Right.
it's not one of those situations.
Right,
So,
right, right.
which
So
is what made me think it was like,
I'm
well, maybe that was
I'm
a
glad
different
you picked up on that.
Yeah. So
All
yeah,
right, so I
needless to
guess
say,
we can move on to rapid fire, and we'll get through our books.
indeed. Actually, speaking of books,
Strange time to breathe.
should have been writing down some of these. But go ahead and do your books if you don't mind.
Sure, I will go through mine. First up, so I'm a little out of alphabetical order because I was listing my DC books first. First up is Nightwing number 88. It is written by Tom Taylor with art by Bruno Redondo. Colors are by Adriano Lucas. Letters are by And World Design. So this issue has Dick Grayson kind of coming to terms with a big announcement that he made when Tom Taylor initially took over the writing of this title. And that, this is all coming out of, the events of the latter part of the Tom King Batman. And, I'm not trying to spoil all of it, but at the end of the day, Nightwing has found himself independently wealthy, independent of Bruce Wayne, and he's looking to start something in Bloodhaven or Bloodhaven, and some people are not happy about that, and they're looking to take him out. And Nightwing is able to call upon his 1980s gang of friends, and they're able to assist. He actually doesn't call upon them. Barbara Gordon does, and Barbara Gordon has been placed first and foremost into the role of main love interest for Nightwing lately. So, and Dick Grayson lately. So, that's definitely a subplot that is running through the pages of this Nightwing book. But as I said, there is a nice callback to and a splash page specifically to a particular supergroup that Nightwing was a member of in the 1980s and 90s and beyond. But there is a particular splash page that has a nice little callback to the cover of issue number 1 of that book. And ultimately, we find out as the story goes is that there are still forces at work in Bloodhaven who are not happy with the direction that Dick Grayson wants to take his charitable efforts in. Next up, so we did Amazing number 86. Next up is Avengers number 52. And the book is written by Jason Aaron with art by Juan Frigeri. Color art is by David Curiel, and letters are by VC's Corey Pettit. So this issue kind of took a little bit of a detour from where we've been so far with all of the multiversal incursions that have been happening recently in the pages of Jason Aaron's Avengers. But they are not far away, because they do in fact rear their head later on in this issue. But we open this issue with Captain America paying his respects to one of the last remaining World War II veterans that he fought alongside, and while Carol Danvers, and the brand new, not a crawling baby anymore, Starbrand, take a trip to Kansas, they find themselves in the birthplace of the new baby Starbrand. And what is her first name?
Brandy.
Brandy's, right. So her full name is Brandy Selby. And Brandy Selby's origin story, at least her mother's origin story and her own origin story, are recapped here in just a few panels. And that's really all we know about this new baby Starbrand right now. That's all we, that's all we're going to know for a little while. And as I said, the ongoing multiversal Avengers stuff that's been happening in Jason Aaron's Avengers does in fact rear its head, and we get a squad of Deathlocks and a couple of these multiversal Masters of Evil that come in and try to take down Captain America and Captain Marvel. I really like that Aaron is stressing their military connection, even though they are from different branches of the United States Armed Services. They both react similarly, and despite Carol Danvers, I think, literally outranking Captain America, at least in actual rank, we all know who actually leads, and it's kind of funny that that Carol is actually very explicit about that at the beginning of the issue to the new Starbrand, and ultimately we get here in this issue a reveal of, or at least an updating of the Starbrand's status, and where and what we may possibly be seeing going forward from the Starbrand character, this updated version of the Starbrand.
Yeah, this character up until now, and could possibly still, even at this new point, was kind of annoying. Because so for those that don't know, the Starbrand was, the brand was born out in space, and we get some of that there. It was a baby, and the baby keeps aging up. So that's the kind of thing that's going on in this. Not the first time we've seen that in an Avengers book, but in a different in a different way.
Yeah.
And as Agent 70 and I kind of talked before the show, they're setting some things up, especially with a core group of Avengers that we were both curious as to what they're implying.
What they meant. Yeah.
So, and I guess we will probably get that, because there's a part of it that we don't get in this issue that we'll probably get. I assume we're going to get in another issue. And yeah, like Agent 7 said, there's the whole multiversal thing that's been going on in the last couple of issues. So this is like probably one of three parts, because we saw Thor, what was going on with Thor and Iron Man last issue at pretty much at the same, I presume, at the same time as what this is going on. And then there's another part where Avengers Mountain gets attacked, which we will see next issue. But I think we kind of got bits of at the end of last issue, in a way. So the teams basically split up, but they're all end up dealing with the same threat. So, and I assume at some point they're going to come together. What's up?
Alrighty, next up is Hulk #3, written by Donny Cates with art by Ryan Ottley. Pencils by Ryan Ottley. Inks are by Cliff Rathburn. Colors are by Frank Martin and Federico Blee. And letters are by VC's Corey Pettit. Did you read this?
I did not. I meant to, but
okay. So I won't spoil what happens in this issue, but we do follow up on the cliffhanger ending of the last issue. And we have an update on a possible trip into the multiverse that the Hulk is actually on.
Okay.
And that's really the crux of this issue, because we're dealing with that possible, with that distinct possibility.
Interesting. Okay. I'll just
all right. So it's all multiverse all the time, thanks to Peter Parker in a certain movie that Roddykat just watched.
Well, thanks to this phase, what's going on in MCU phase 4 period, but yes, definitely
Right.
that too.
Right. He just watched it, folks.
Yes, I did.
We didn't even get we forgot to cover it because I had shut it out of my head for so many weeks because Roddykat took his sweet time watching it for real reasons.
Yes. So I have seen Spider-Man No Way Home, and I'm miffed about a thing that happened in it, but overall,
Right. So we'll probably So Roddykat and I will probably talk about it after the show, and maybe we'll do a short Treasury edition about it.
Yeah, we'll see about it.
Now that he's watched it and we could talk about it more in depth.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, next up is Moon Knight number 7.
I've read this.
Alrighty, and allow me to get the creative team out. It is written by Jed MacKay with art by Federico Sabatini. Color is by Rochelle Rosenberg, and letters are by VC's Corey Pettit. So in this issue, Moon Knight is on the hunt for information on the villain known as Zodiac. And I love that MacKay actually writes into this issue that there's some confusion as to who we are referring to when we talk about the character Zodiac. Mm-hmm. And one of the parallel stories that's happening in this issue involves Tigra, aka Greer Nelson, who is in this series working with Mark Spector, and we find out that she is also there with other tasks. She's there with, I don't want to say an ulterior motive, but she's there she's there for another purpose.
Yes.
And I like that while she's fulfilling this other purpose, she talks about how there is some confusion even in the superhero ranks about this Zodiac character that is appearing as an antagonist in the pages of Moon Knight. We also get the reappearance of 8-Ball from I want to say from, I don't remember where we last saw him.
Yeah, neither.
But at the end of the day, it's kind of fun that MacKay grabs 8-Ball and has Moon Knight basically shake him down for information. We move on from 8-Ball to another minor street character who I wasn't all that familiar with.
Neither. Yeah, same me either.
But apparently has had a history in the street level villains that basically populate the pages of Daredevil and Spider-Man. And now we have Moon Knight adding to that kind of corner of the Marvel Universe, the street level heroes. This character may have been in the pages of Punisher too. It's funny that Mark Spector does in fact shout out Spider-Man and the Punisher as kind of like the two polar opposites to where Moon Knight lies in that particular spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, we get kind of a gruesome end to a character that we thought we might see in the Hawkeye Disney series. And we find out why Tigra is, who is behind Tigra's secondary purpose of helping out Mark Spector. And we do, in fact, get to see a little bit of Zodiac at the end of the issue. You have anything to add?
I was about to say, so I didn't think that was the same version of that character that you said meet the gruesome end that from Hawkeye. I didn't actually pick up on that because I thought it was like another person going by the same name.
Mm.
So that's interesting that you said that. But yeah, the thing with Tigra, I guess some way you could probably be like, you could probably say, oh, okay, yeah, this makes sense, which it does now that it's out there of her other dealings, her side dealings in this matter, and also the fact that if anyone would have anything, well, Tigra is going up against a version of Zodiac, the Zodiac cartel, as they say, is because she was one of the Avengers groups that did going up against them. Now, granted, this is not the same, or it doesn't seem to be the same, affiliated with the same cartel, or has anything to do that. We don't know, because there's like even this book says like there's stuff known about them, but nothing known about them.
Mhm.
So even as she's looking into information on this, it was like, okay, yeah, like she would know what she knows about them, but or at least about the cartel, the previous cartel, and not necessarily this character, but they don't know anything at all. So, but her dealings, her side dealings, was like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense given what we know. I guess if you infer some things from Moon Knight and past dealings, which he kind of does mention at the beginning of this issue. In the bar with no name, which takes guts, but then again, it's Moon Knight. He don't care. he gives no F's. But overall, that it was a good issue, I thought, and I'm curious as to how some of this stuff is gonna pan out.
I was about to say, were we going to talk? You know what we forgot to mention is that the trailer for Moon Knight dropped.
Oh no, we'll get to that.
Oh, it's in the news. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I didn't have a chance to scroll the news, so we'll talk about that shortly. Next up is Strange Academy number 15. It is written by Scotty Young with art by Humberto Ramos. Edgar Delgado is the color artist, and VC's Clayton Cowles is the letterer. So we pick up almost where we left off at the on the events of the previous issue, and we get a little bit of more of a Harry Potter vibe, at least in one sequence in this issue, where we get a little bit of Defense Against the Dark Arts kind of sequence here, and we find out that Calvin did in fact go through with what we thought he did in the last issue, and the suspicions are the suspicions of what has happened are kind of peaked, and we find out that in this issue, at the end, the cliffhanger in this issue is that the character that Calvin approached is looking to infiltrate the Strange Academy.
Yep. And also never get high on your own supply.
Pretty much. Yeah, definite Defense Against the Dark Arts sequences there.
Yes, it definitely did pick up on that in the beginning, and as I said in the book, sometimes the best defense is a good punch.
Right.
Against magic is a good punch.
Right.
But yeah, that whole sequence with Wong and magic also was kind of fun with them demonstrating. Because if you know the character of Magic, she is if she's anything, she is definitely confident in her abilities. So, which kind of got the best of her in the way, but it was the show off thing. So cool. Strange Academy. This book.
No, I'm sorry. You were still talking about Strange Academy.
Yeah.
You all done?
Yep.
All right. Last but not least, that's what I was trying to say. Last but not least for me is 10 Lives of Wolverine number 1. So this is the mini event that is taking over or being published in place of Wolverine, and maybe X-Force, because this book is written by Benjamin Percy with art by Joshua Cassara, color artist is Frank Martin, and letters are by VC's Corey Pettit. So I'm not sure if X-Force is being published while 10 Lives and 10 Deaths of Wolverine is being published. I'm not sure, but I know that Wolverine is on hiatus while this is going on.
Right. Well, we know that most of the X books have either ended and or are paused until next month, until March. Or not even, no, so there's going to be at least 1 or 2 books that's going to be restarted in the book, and we know some X books that are still coming. So I would assume you're probably right that X books is probably either paused or had ended.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, specifically X-Force and Wolverine. I knew specifically Wolverine was. I'm not sure about X-Force. Right. But the reason why I mention it and the reason why I put that up front is that if you have not read X-Force and Wolverine up until now, you may find yourself scratching your head just a touch, but not that much, because Percy does, in fact, do a good job of setting up some of the stakes of what's going on. Because we have an idea that there is a version of a time heist here, but it's not a heist. There's definitely some elements of time travel here, but there are also elements of stories that have been going on through the pages of Wolverine and X-Force that weave their way together into this story. And the ultimate crux is that Wolverine is going through not just his past, but the past of another key figure in X-Men history. And Wolverine's task is to prevent this character from, at least in this issue, experiencing an untimely demise. And if Endgame taught us anything, is that that's not how time works, but hey, we'll roll with it.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's an interesting, it's an interesting idea. I'd be willing to read more of this. I actually have not pulled this, so if I like this issue, if I like the second issue, I might go back and pick these up.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't completely convinced that this was something I needed to put into my pull list. Next week is the 10 Deaths of Wolverine, so we're gonna get 5 and 5 over the span of 10 weeks.
Yeah, a la Hoxpox.
Mhm.
So worth noting, this is 1 of 5, correct?
Yes.
You said, yeah, and yeah, like the deaths of. Yeah, I'm slightly curious of the parallel between that book and then that book, but it's probably going to do more of this, I guess. And I'm not really reading this, and I may check it out. I mean, I haven't been reading Wolverine, but I have been reading X-Force.
Right.
So I'm curious as to how much that's going to serve me in this if I do read it. That being said, though, you're done with yours?
Yes, I am done.
Alrighty, we're gonna go on into mine then, which I don't have much left. The death of Doctor Strange, X-Men, and Black Knight. Did you read this?
No, there was this book. I think there was a Devil's Reign book I wanted to read also.
Right, yeah, there were 2 Devil's Reign tie-ins this week.
Yeah, there was a bunch. There were a bunch of books out this week, and there was just a little too much to read.
Yeah, there was a couple of Star Wars books I kind of wanted to check out and didn't get a chance to, but it is what it is. So yeah, Death of Doctor Strange, X-Men, Black Knight #1. Now you may be wondering why the Black Knight is here as opposed to this week's Eternals. If you're wondering, or maybe it's just me, but
I skimmed this week's Eternals, but I'm so behind on Eternals that I've kind of lost track of what's really going on. At some point, I'm going to sit down and kind of reread this entire run with the one shots, because what I saw at the end of this week's Eternals is that it's going right into, it's setting up the whole Avengers crossover.
Right, yes, and we'll talk about that in the news also, and we have talked about that in the news.
Right, we have mentioned that before, so we're starting to see the first hints of the Avengers crossover in the pages of Eternals right now.
Right. So yeah, but like I said, more on that in a little bit. There's not really much to this book. Let's see. So first of all, the creative team is written by Cy Spurrier, art by Bob Quinn, colors by Israel Silva, and letters by VC's Corey Pettit. So this is a revelation to me. Apparently, Dane Whitman has a daughter that he did not know about until recently. So I didn't know if you knew about this.
No, I'm not that familiar with Dane Whitman's history like that, so that's news to me.
Yeah, so apparently this must have been something very recent because, like I said, as they say in this book, like he just found out about her. So they are sharing the mantle of Black Knight. Excuse me. But I guess their relationship is still new and there's trust issues, as this thing is saying, and they don't necessarily get along, but that, well, they get along in the way that a estranged parent and kid would, let's just say, I guess. But it does get better near the end of it. But regardless, so they go into the situation that happens in London. So Death of Doctor Strange is a thing. Because of that, the barriers around the world have collapsed because of Doctor Strange's death, which brings about a threat that happens in London. The X-Men go in to investigate, and they get taken over. Some kind of way that I'm not entirely sure how what happens, but they don't necessarily get into that. But regardless, this is where this other Black Knight who Dane is the man in the chair of his daughter, kind of goes in to investigate, and she kind of wants to do things her own way, and and Dane Whitman being Dane, being like overly cautious because he has a history of being slightly annoying himself. They run into Faiza Hussein, which is one of my favorite characters, who knows the Black Knight, but not this version of him, but doesn't really pick up on that until halfway through this. But they end up saving the day, and with the help of the X-Men at the end of this. And at the end of this, they come to find out that there's something else that we didn't know about with, or that apparently is a revelation to everyone, but not necessarily said out loud to the people that probably needed to hear it, in that there is something else with Dane's daughter that was not known, that the X-Men kind of pick up on because they have telepaths. Also, we get a little backstory into the relationship between the Ebony sword and Excalibur, because as folks may or may not know, Black Knight wields the ebony sword, the ebony blade, and Faiza Hussein wields Excalibur at this point. And there's a dynamic that is introduced here in this story that is a thing, and that ends up playing into what happens at the end of it. But you can read for that for yourself. And whatever they're going to do with these characters or whatnot, then we'll see. I guess at some point, someplace else, who knows. Next up, though, I think we have Black Manta, number 5 of 6, actually. Let me pull this up. Creative team is writer Chuck Brown, art by Valentine Delandro, colors by Marissa Louise, letters by Clayton Cowles, not a VC in this particular instance. So the character of Devil Ray, who's been pretty much bucking for Black Manta's mantle, we get some backstory into why he's after Black Manta, and what is his beef with him. We also find this character trying to recruit Manta to do something for him at the same time. So there's, so the whole crux of this issue is pretty much like, okay, here's why he has a beef. Here's what we need. Here's what he needs Manta from. And then there's a little side stuff with well, it's not even some side stuff. The most of it is that, and there's a couple of new characters that's kind of in here doing a couple of things like this, or get put in the middle of the beef between Devil Ray and Manta. As if you're watching the video version of this, you can see that at the top of this, there's a banner to this series is a prelude to Aquaman, which is a upcoming event that has to do with Arthur Curry Aquaman, Jackson Hyde I guess he's Aqualad, I'm not sure, or he might be the new Aquaman, we don't know, who is Black Manta's son. None of that is necessarily dealt with here, but it sounds like what's going on in this book is going to lead up to something that's going to I guess play into that miniseries. which I'm slightly curious about. The more I'm reading this issue, and I know Aquaman: The Becoming, which is a miniseries about. Oh, hello. Oh, oh no. Uh-oh. Hold on, folks. Oh, okay. Agent 70 had to restart, and my audio is not okay. So hang on for a second. Let's go ahead and start this call back. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Agent 70 will probably be back with us in a moment, but let me go ahead and finish what I was talking about. So yes, like I said, Aquaman: Becoming is a Jackson Hyde miniseries that I think is also going to be run into this Aquaman miniseries. So, and I haven't read any of that yet, so not sure how that plays into this. But regardless, this Black Manta series was a curiosity, and felt like I wanted to check it out. And here it's been pretty good so far, or at least so far. Like, if you don't really know that much about Black Manta outside of seeing the Aquaman movie, that probably will, and you're curious, that may be enough for you. Don't know. Next book is Nubia and the Amazons, number 4 of 6. Story by Stephanie Williams and Vida Ayala. Script by Stephanie Williams. Pencils by Aletha Martinez and Darryl Banks. Inks by Mark Morales, Darryl Banks, and Aletha Martinez. And colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr. And I can safely say that I have been loving the art in this book. While I've been reading the story also, but definitely the art as well. So after the events of last issue, Nubia finds out that Medusa is still around and is in possession of one of the other Amazons' body. And this particular Amazon has some past history with Nubia from a former life before coming to Themyscira. To which we get a good bit into. At the same time, Nubia is dealing with trying to find someone to replace her old position guarding the door, which allowed Medusa to escape in the first place because there was somebody else supposed to be guarding it. And basically, people are have issues with her rule, let's put it this way, because she is, at this point, she is the queen of Themyscira, after getting the title from Hippolyta, in a story that actually I never read. I should probably check that out too. But this is all also leading up to another event with the Amazons and Wonder Woman at some point in the future coming up. And it's supposedly a big thing, but I know this is at least the issue 1 of this issue definitely alludes to that coming, and whether this is going to fold into, or how this is going to fold into that, and possibly what's going on in Wonder Girl and Wonder Woman, which I haven't been reading. Well, Wonder Girl definitely I've been reading, but Wonder Woman I haven't been reading, and whatever's leading up to this event is probably going to bear out. I kind of I love the story here. I was kind of funny because there was a mention of an old magazine from back in the 70s and 80s called Jet. Jet was, Jet is pretty much a sister magazine to Ebony. If you are, if you're a Black person of a certain vintage, both of those books. And in one of those books, they had a Beauty of the Week, which is, pretty much what it sounds like. And there was a reference to that I have never seen in comics that I know of and before. So that right there kind of put a smile on my face. And I'm like, but knowing who the writer is, I was like, okay, yeah, I get that. That makes sense. She would know this. So that was a cool reference to see in a comic book. It's kind of funny also. But at the same time, like I said, we see kind of this book kind of progressing forward to wherever it's going, into a showdown between Nubia and Medusa. And in that showdown, we get the fact that Nubia has a new weapon made out of her, which slightly almost looks like Wonder Girls to a certain point, but not really. Or if you've played the game Soul Calibur, kind of like Ivy's whip, sorta. But yeah, like I said, I've been enjoying this miniseries. I think you could probably read this without. Well, you probably would want some knowledge as to how Nubia became queen of the Amazons, but that is out there, and I can't remember what the story that was, but it was a one shot that came out like late last year or early last year or mid last year, I guess, to say that kind of set up a few storylines, including this one. So we shall see. Last but not least, and hopefully Agent 70 will be back with us shortly. Icon and Rocket. Excuse me. Icon and Rocket season 1, number 5. As I'm looking up there we go. The cover. Written by Reginald Hudlin and Leon Chills, pencils by Doug Braithwaite, inks by Andrew Curry, colors by Brad Anderson, and letters by And World Design. So if you don't know, Icon and Rocket season 1 is a part of the Milestone Returns line, which is basically the reboot of the old Milestone Comics line from back in the 80s. That was done by Reginald Hudlin, Dwayne McDuffie, and other folks. So a couple of books have been rebooted. Icon and Rocket being one of them. Static, of course, you know Static. Some folks may know Static from the cartoon of the same name, Static Shock. But it's the same universe that was slightly outside of the DC universe, but still within. So this is a reboot of that particular line of characters. In this issue, actually, there is a meeting of sorts of a couple of those characters and we have not seen this before or at least unless it's something that played out in the original Milestone books, I don't have that much of a familiar with the characters to that extent, because I have a cursory. I remember reading a couple of Milestone books, but I never really got fully into the line, and obviously know about Static from the cartoon, and Icon and Rocket. Well, Rocket specifically from like Justice League, and Icon, I guess, at that point. Regardless, Rocket in plain clothes meets up with Virgil, aka Static, in school, because apparently they go to the same school, and which is why I said it was like, well, they've never seemed to have met before. So unless this was something that was inferred, because I guess they're in the same town definitely, but as far as I know, have never met each other before now. However, Virgil seems to know that Raquel is Rocket, and he tells her that he's Static, trying to get some familiarity. And I guess, I don't know, trying to date her. I don't know if that's the case, but he was kind of coming off a little strong, a little bit, because she was being set by him and a couple other people whose attentions wanted of her, only to be taken away by somebody else who pretty much got her away from the situation, but also put her into a nice little trap. And on the other side of this, Rocket is looking for this nemesis. I mean, not Rocket, Icon, who basically is the Black Superman, you might as well say. But he's also an alien. He's also super strong. Super strong, flies, heat vision, all that kind of good mess. So he's kind of a Superman parallel. He's been on Earth for hundreds of years. Unlike Superman. So, he's seen slavery times, and he's seen this and that and other. So, he's had this nemesis who has also been around as long, and they kind of fought each other standstill, and that nemesis is back, and they fought last last issue, but the person got away, and Icon is now looking for him with the help of this other alien, presumably, I guess she's an alien, named Ziamira, who on one hand is helping Icon, but also wants to recruit Raquel, aka Rocket, for her group called the Love Corps, which is kind of funny to me. And maybe possibly there's something going on in between those two characters of Icon and Mira. Don't know. But they seem to be setting something like that up. And who's to see where that's going to go. But they also end up in a trap of sorts that was laid out by presumably this nemesis of that went after Raquel at the end of this issue. So we will see going in the next issue. In the next issue, what happens from that? We would assume everybody's going to survive, but we will see. And that is it for me and my books. I'm trying to actually sit here and wait for Agent 70 to return. Pardon me a second, folks. And forgive the typing. If you're hopefully if you're watching the video version of this, this will probably be cut out of the audio version. So if you're watching the video version, I apologize for the interruption. That being said, I think we're going to go to Clicks of the Week, and hopefully Agent 7 will be back on the line with us when he gets back. So Clicks of the Week, bum 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 bum. All right, so Clicks of the Week, as I restart my own recording, we did get a couple of clicks from our absent hosts. And let's see, as I pull up the chat. So from Tim, oh wait, this is the wrong one. There we go. So from Tim, he says She-Hulk is his click of the week. I didn't necessarily give any reasons as to why, but you know what? Hey, that's a good pick because as we talked about earlier, you know, it's a pretty good start to the miniseries. And from Dirt, his is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 125. Bink. To pull that up there, and he says, let's see, they face off against the Teenage Mutant Punk Frogs, which if you're watching the video version, you can see the cover of. It says, it's the 80s indie explosion all over again. I just hope the preteen dirty jean kung fu kangaroos and adolescent radioactive black belt hamsters, and yes, that was actually real groups, or at least the last one, I don't know about the first one, are next. So yeah, for folks that don't know, after Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles kind of came out and became an indie success back in the 80s, there came a lot of offsprings, including adolescent radioactive black belt hamsters. I don't know about this kangaroo group, so I'm kind of curious. I should check that out real quick and see if that was an actual group, but I don't have no reason to doubt that that those was things. And apparently, yes, they are. Preteen Dirty Jean Kung Fu Kangaroos was a thing. I had never heard of this. And it very much didn't last that long, and apparently one of the turtles starred in it or guest starred in it or something. I'm not, yeah, looks like it. And Peter Laird was involved with a little bit of the art in this thing. So that's funny. You learn something new every day, folks. Let's see. So yeah, so that's that. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is still a thing. Cowabunga, pizza, all of that good stuff. Now, for myself, there was a lot of books this week. So, there's some stuff I still didn't get a chance to get around to that I kind of wish I did, like I kind of mentioned earlier, and like Agent 70 did earlier. Which, depending on a particularly good week, kind of makes it hard to choose a book. Strange Academy, I'm always going to enjoy, and it was good this week. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot that happened to kind of further the story, but still good. Miles was what it was. Newbie in the Amazon. I say people should read that book and definitely read Strange Academy. I've been enjoying that Black Manta. I can't say that everybody would. I think probably the bigger ones for this week, personally, are between She-Hulk #1 and Silk #1. And I believe Agent 70, if he were here right now, he would probably agree with me. The art on Silk was great. Like, the story on Silk was pretty good, and it's always fun. Oh, and looks like Agent 70 is back.
Oh, sorry about that. Not sure why my computer decided to literally have a panic attack.
Wouldn't be one of these shows if something didn't happen to one of us or one of our computers.
It happens once in a while, folks. We apologize. So, did you already do Clicks of the Week?
I did Dirt's and Tim's, and I was kind of discussing mine.
All right. So, have you decided?
No, I'm still kind of going through which ones. Matter of fact, I just said it, like, if you were here, you would probably agree that the stronger books of the week might possibly be between She-Hulk and Silk. I didn't want to speak for you, but
No, absolutely. I think She-Hulk #1 was a really strong book, as was Silk #1. I think that Nightwing #88 was a definite throwback issue, and despite the fact that the New Star brand was kind of annoying, that's kind of what we expect from teenagers. Like really young, like tweens, and that's what we got in Avengers number 52.
Almost Space Races also, but that's a whole other situation.
Say again?
So Almost Space Races also up until the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
You remember her little when she would kind of brush up against Carol.
Right. Moon Knight wasn't bad either this week.
That is true.
So there was a few good books out this week, and Strange Academy is always strong, and it definitely has a strong continuity with the previous issue. There isn't much of a gap at all in terms of the understanding between issues 14 and 15 of Strange Academy. I'm gonna go with it's tough because I really did like the Nightwing issue this week because of the nostalgia trip with the Titans. Right. And that was the group I was referring to. If the listeners and the viewers out there didn't get that, are we still broadcasting? Or are we on YouTube, or we're off YouTube now?
No, we're still good on that part.
Okay.
Yeah, recording's fine. It's just that the call dropped and caused a slight issue, but it's fine.
Got it. It's always weird when the call drops because one of the two of us isn't on. I'm like, wait, I didn't start this call, did I?
You were on it before I was.
Oh, okay. So that's probably why it cut out when I dropped off.
But sometimes, like, well, this is a little behind the scenes. Sometimes even it doesn't matter which one of us started. Like, if one of us leaves, it'll still cut out when
Cut
one of
off.
us leaves. So it's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. Kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go with. Ooh, this is a tough one. There's a few quality books out this week.
I know. I think I'm actually gonna go with Tim and kind of go with my potential click of the week. That being of She-Hulk, because as you said,
Yeah.
it definitely was a strong book.
Yeah, it was a strong. I think I'll agree with that. I thought that was a good number one issue, even though it is a number one of 5.
Yeah. And fans of She-Hulk also, not just because of that, but it was definitely a good, a good She-Hulk story, as we know it to be. And actually, it weirdly enough kind of makes me want to go back and reread some of those old books. I don't think I've finished reading like Slot Run, but so I kind of definitely want to go back and check that one out. But there are books actively coming out, so it's kind of gonna be hard to do some of that stuff. But yeah, definitely want to check some of it out, especially before the show happens. So you
I
said
get
you're
it.
going with She-Hulk also?
Yep.
Okay, sweet. So there you go. 3 away for She-Hulk and 1 for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from Dirt. All right, so we're going to go into the news of the week, but first, an ad read.
Our first ad read of the night is for Blue Apron's meal delivery service. Fresh ingredients and incredible recipes delivered weekly to your door. Skip the grocery store and make incredible meals at home with Blue Apron. Always shipped free right to your home. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can get $30 off your first Blue Apron order. To place your first order with $30 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Blue Apron link and sign up for your first order. Blue Apron through cspn.us. Do it today. And now we get into the news.
And we start with the cinematic news as we do each week about this time. I don't know why I said it like that. Book of Boba Fett's Tamara Morrison open to playing Captain Rex and other clones, which I guess makes sense because he was the voice. So yeah, apparently according to an interview with the Washington Post, Morrison listed out some of the more famous clones in both the Star Wars films and in the animated series. Quote, well, there are people, I'm thinking of Captain Rex for one. He looks a little like me, Morrison said. There's Commander Cody. What happened to those guys? They're all clone. There's all those clone armies. Well, there were, but anyway, that could be something fresh and new and exciting. I feel like of those, from what we came to find out and actually, you know what? I don't know if something happens in season 7 of Clone Wars because I still haven't watched that. But as far as we know, no, because they were still alive. Rex was still alive as
In Jedi.
huh? Well, yeah,
Rex was
but
alive in
also
Jedi.
right. Wait, was he?
He was even though it's not acknowledged, he's not acknowledged to be, but Captain Rex is supposed to be one of the rebels that are part of the force that invades Endor in Jedi.
Right, that's right. I do remember that. Yeah, because I was about to say, as of Star Wars Rebels, yes, he definitely was around, which was before that. But yes, you're right. There was that speculation that he was one of the rebels. You're right. So
Right. So it's tough because the voice in the voice in the cartoons is D. Bradley Baker.
right.
Right. That's the voice that we know. But in terms of the face, it's obviously based on what Tamara Morrison looked like back then. Right.
So I mean, yeah, give him a little facial hair. He could do it. So he could play Rex if that's the case. What they would do for him, I don't know what's the case. Also, you mentioned D. Bradley Baker. He's in Peacemaker playing Eagly.
Right.
So, which not the first time there's been, voice acting for an animal. Like we know Frank Welker and is it Frank Welker Frank Welker does like Scooby Doo and other other though. So it's not outside of, or just animals in general and things. So it's kind of funny. But regardless, so yeah, this article is basically saying that I guess he said he would be open to doing any of the clones, should there be a reason for those to come up, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, why not? Next up,
Danny Trejo in a spoiler for episode 3 of the Book of Boba Fett shared a behind the scenes image featuring Temuera Morrison, and spoiler alert for episode 3 of the Book of Boba Fett, a giant Rancor head.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 3 of the Disney Plus Boba Fett show finally brought in a Rancor to occupy the Rancor pit in Boba Fett's new palace, or Jabba the Hutt's old palace.
Yes, or the monastery of whoever Jabba took it from.
Right.
You can go down that line. But yeah, I thought this was a cool picture, and if you're watching the video version, you can see Temuera Morrison and Danny Trejo and the head in the Twitter post. So that's cool. Always good to see Danny Trejo in anything.
Right, and we joked about it last week that if Robert Rodriguez is around, can Danny Trejo really be far behind?
Exactly, we definitely did say that, and yeah, at this point, yes, that is true. Next up though
is you.
Oh yeah, Ironheart's villain rumored to be major MCU bad guy. Major Marvel bad guy. Wait, hold on. Retake. Ironheart's villain rumored to be a major Marvel bad guy's MCU debut. There we go. According to the Illuminati, so take it with a grain of salt. A major villain in the Ironheart's Disney Plus show is a white man in his late 20s who described as charming, magnetic, slick, and oily. Also as handsome with an athletic build. That could be pretty much anybody. I don't know what. So, according to this article, based on the description, the speculation is Parker Robbins the Hood. I don't think any of that with Parker.
I was about to say that's kind of a stretch.
Yeah. So, and why would he be going up against Ironheart of all things? Like, you, at the very least, an Iron Man villain or so,
Well, they might. What it is that they might harp on the origin of Riri Williams. With like either organized crime or gangbangers or something like that.
Well, her dad, her dad and her best friend got killed by gangbangers. Goddamn Bendis.
He watched whatchamacallit? Oh my god, I can't believe it's escaping me right now. We watched
which while you're thinking of that, I did watch episode 2 of Naomi. That's all right. They get into some stuff with her.
Episode 2 of what?
Naomi.
Oh, Naomi. Oh, okay.
So it's still kind of CW, but like I said, they're getting into some stuff about her character, which I still haven't read the original miniseries from her, which I need to read on.
No, I was just gonna say it's too bad that Bendis was probably watching Boys in the Hood before that particular origin story was drafted.
Yeah. I mean,
and he had a little cube on the brain, like, you know what? They don't know, they don't show.
Yeah, which kind of one of the things with Bendis. Now, granted, he also gave us Miles, but he also had some missteps with that character also. So, but yeah, that aside, So again, this is a rumor. We don't know how much it is of this is the case. There could be something to it. We don't know. It seems a weird fit. That's all I'm saying. But then again, they've done weird things in the MCU, as we have seen. So, but next up.
All right, next up, Moon Knight. As Roddykat teased earlier, and as I was asking earlier, Moon Knight had a trailer debut for the Disney Plus show on Monday night during the NFL Wild Card Playoff game this past Monday night on ABC, and it showed us our best look yet at Oscar Isaac as multiple personality, suffering from the multiple personalities. And we had our first glimpse of Ethan Hawke as the series' apparent main villain. The trailer also revealed that the show will be coming to Disney Plus on March 30th. Roddykat, what did you think?
I enjoyed it. Like, I know there's been some. Well, I definitely was amused by Oscar Isaac's British accent. I think he was also because so there's another video. There's a video on Marvel Entertainment's site where he and Ethan Hawke are reacting to the trailer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is kind of amusing. Check it out. But overall, I'm like, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I know I've seen online, it's like, yeah, the people are probably most anticipating this particular thing because of the way this trailer went off. So I'm curious because of what they seemingly set up in this and especially knowing what little I do about Moon Knight's backstory. And yeah, they do set up the DID, aka the multiple personality thing, and also, but they're kind of going
dissociative identity disorder.
Exactly, and by assertion of the trailer, there seems to be not going with the quote unquote the main identity.
Or maybe not right away.
Seemingly, because like I said, it's a trailer, so everything in the trailer might not even show up might not even come into the actual show, or might not even be portrayed in the way that they're set it up. So
exactly, it may not be portrayed in the order that we're seeing it in the trailer.
Exactly.
So so I had a few comments on this. The first thing is, it makes some sense that they would put the Stephen Grant character up front because we would think that this character needed some money to come up with some of the gadgets that he's got, but then no, but hear me out.
No, go ahead.
But then we find out that the costume is not what we are used to, and that part is, I think, to me, was the most confusing to me, because why start out with the Stephen Grant character when the whole point of the Stephen Grant character is to show how Moon Knight is able to finance his activities.
Well,
right?
And okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish.
But my point is, they started with with making him British, whatever, they made him British, just to make it so that it was a little bit more hoity-toity. Maybe he's a little bit more refined and maybe more likely to be moneyed. But at the end of the day, I felt like, it threw me a little bit that they portrayed the costume as being something else other than what we're used to.
I kind of like that part though.
No, but I bumped on it because why, because, at least what's implied is that the Stephen Grant character has some money. But it's not shown yet, but not that it changes anything really about the character, because it's still that particular aspect of the DID is still in place. But my point being that adding that kind of supernatural costume effect, obviously plays for a cool visual, but at the same time takes away from some of the elements of the character that we're accustomed to in the comics, like the gadgets and the tech and the money that's behind it.
Maybe, yeah. So on that part, especially with the series,
well, obviously we'll learn more when the series comes. But go on.
Exactly, yeah. But the part about him being like, yeah, we know the character is basically he's the Bruce Wayne persona for Moon Knight, because if folks don't know, Moon Knight's basically Batman but with multiple personalities. In a sense, that's giving him kind of short shrift, but that's a basic thing. I don't know. I don't remember too much about the Stephen Grant character, but the way they portrayed him here doesn't seem like he's all that money. I feel like he looked like he was working at the museum. So I can't imagine how much money that he would have to be if he's working at that particular museum. If that's the way they look like, and that's the way they're looking like they're portraying it. So I don't know if he actually does have that kind of money. I mean, maybe he does, and there's something we're not seeing. Like, yeah, the place he's looking into could be an assertion, but and they're playing him like he's. Obviously, he's probably freaking out because I guess he's learning that there's he's got some stuff going on with him, and that's the way they're setting him up. But I don't know. I feel like that character probably would have had a little bit more assuredness to the portrayal as opposed to what they're putting off here. Again, there's a lot we don't know because this trailer only teases bits and pieces of it, and we don't, as you said, don't really tease out the order of how things may even be playing out. So there's a lot we really don't know. So to kind of go into speculation of what's that even about is kind of weird. Like I said, and part of it, we're kind of going on what we already know about the character. But that being said, yeah, I don't know. I didn't have a problem with the suit or the supernatural problem. I'm going to assume they're going to explain part of that, but I thought it was, like I said, it was definitely a cool effect. Like, sure, that they may be changing it a little bit to from what we know about, especially how the financing done or whatever the case may be. We do know Mark Spector is going to be a thing. I guess they're going to round about it if it is playing off the way this trailer is asserting it, as opposed to the other way around that we kind of know of from the comics. But yeah, like I said, we don't know, but we'll find out. We'll find out when it pops off. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. That's for certain, because the visual styles of this is kind of made me interested. Oscar Isaac's portrayal, we still kind of don't know that much about outside of what we see in this trailer, and it says something, but not a whole lot. So
it only gives us a clue.
Exactly.
It only shows us what we might see in terms of the DID portrayal. So, there's still so much to this, and we only have a month and a half to wait for it.
Yep. Which I guess that does make it the next show, because I don't.
Well, like a little bit, like not quite 2 months. Not quite 2 months. Don't put it that way.
Show, and I guess She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel is probably gonna be later.
In
the year. Yeah. I think Ms. Marvel's like next year, maybe, but.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So yeah, looking forward to it, regardless, one way or the other. Next up, though, speaking of Moon Knight, Moon Knight actor Gaspard Ulliel, apologize if I butchered that name, dies in a ski accident. So yeah, apparently Gaspard Ulliel plays Midnight Man in Moon Knight, but he, apparently passed away. I don't know whether. Okay, it says here that his IMDb listing shows him as credited in all 6 episodes of season 1, so we know there's going to be 6 episodes in season 1. And he's an obscure villain from the comics that he's supposedly playing. But yeah, he had a ski accident and was pronounced dead after surgery, and that's sad. I looked at this picture of this dude, and I was like, this dude could have straight up played Gambit. Like, did you see the picture of him?
I've seen a picture.
Like, that dude, like, if that wasn't a Gambit, like a 90s era ass Gambit, this dude could have straight up played. Like, I don't know who else is, but condolences to his family for their loss, and yeah, that's a crazy way to go. But again, look, a lot of things are a crazy way to go. So
right, but it was just awful timing based on when that news dropped, basically coinciding with the drop of the trailer.
Right. So, and I'm sure they will do something in the course of the show to mention.
Yeah, that's something they can add in post.
So, next up, though.
Alrighty. New evidence suggests that Marvel's Secret Invasion Disney Plus series is being produced under the working title Jambalaya. Rumors surrounding Secret Invasion's working title have been circulating since 2021, But a new report from the Halifax Courier stated that a Marvel project, codenamed Jambalaya, began on-location preparations in Halifax, England. The production has booked the landmark Peace Hall building for January 24th through 31st and will shut down nearby streets beginning January 21st. According to the Courier, locals are already excited for the extra attention of Marvel Cinematic Universe production promises to bring. I love that because in New York, all that means is that there's probably going to be no parking and definitely more traffic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true, and I'm sure there's some people there also. But yeah, the people are also excited for other reasons as to why it's there in their town. So cool. Boop. Daredevil viewership spikes following Hawkeye and Spider-Man No Way Home. No surprise.
Thankfully, Roddykat can talk about this now.
Yes, indeed, and yes, and I saw it before I saw this article, so that was also kind of amusing. Which actually was kind of funny. I've like having been slightly spoiled on part of it, or at least this particular part of it. I was like, okay, I wasn't. I kind of went into it not necessarily thinking of when they were going to show it, but it showed up when the time they expected to, which was kind of early. So spoiler alerts if you haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home, yeah, Matt Murdock shows up. So just kind of comes in, comes out. But it was also a pretty good scene because, you know, because of what he does in there. Which I assume now that he's officially in the MCU, and also that we have Kingpin also officially in the MCU. We'll see if they can get some of the others in, or and actually use them to effect. So, but yeah, like I said, viewership went up, and I actually thought about trying to go back and watch season 2 because I don't think I did of Daredevil, but I think I actually stopped during the Defenders, so I feel like I got a little ways to go. So hey, congrats! I guess congrats to Netflix also. Something that they didn't have anything to do with.
Wait, so you stopped during season 2 of Daredevil or during season 3?
I didn't. I don't think I watched season 2, or I'm trying to remember if I did watch this.
Well, you saw The Punisher, right? He was in season 2.
Okay, so I must have then. Does season 2 become before the Defenders?
Yeah.
Okay, then I did watch it, and Defenders is where I stopped.
Got it.
So I didn't watch Iron Fist season 2. Didn't watch Punisher. Didn't watch season 2 of Jessica Jones.
Gotcha. No, that makes perfect sense because that's when it all started to fall off anyway.
Yeah, or wait, season 2 of Luke Cage I didn't watch either. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, you're better off. Next up, Black Panther 2 pauses production after Lupita Nyong'o tests positive for COVID. So, it's not just Lupita, but several other cast and crew members testing positive for COVID-19. The delay comes on the heels of another, with Nyong'o's co-star Letitia Wright having just recently returned to set following her recovery from a fractured shoulder and a concussion that she sustained in an incident on the film set in November of last year. The positive COVID test meant that production on Wakanda Forever was again halted just a week after resuming, reported by The Hollywood Reporter. No details regarding the health of Nyong'o or the other cast and crew members were released. Hopefully, she's vaxxed and won't have to deal with any bad side effects going forward.
Right. I'm starting to believe this movie's cursed.
Maybe.
Because it's just been one thing after another. Even outside of
COVID. I was about to say COVID is it's one of the things that if it was just being constantly stopped because of a COVID outbreak, then we'd understand. But because of the thing that happened to Letitia Wright being kind of outside of COVID, then I understand where you're coming from.
And I mean, and Chadwick Boseman, even though I don't think there was no.
I was about to say I don't even think there was a script before he passed away.
When he passed, but we just knew that it was going to be a thing. But so that's kind of crazy. So hopefully things shake out. So I think they're saying now 2023 for this. Well, actually, this article is still saying November 11th, 2022. But
It's possible, not probable.
Yeah, but I'm thinking I feel like I've seen somewhere else that might be pushed to 2023.
No, it makes all the sense in the world for them to wait a little longer, especially with these additional delays.
Exactly. So, but we'll see how that works out. Next up, each world in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse will have its own art style, according to, I guess, Chris Miller. In an recent interview with Collider, I guess Phil Lord and Chris Miller both said that. They spoke about their ambitious approach to Into the Spider-Verse's follow-up. The writers teased that the fans who love the first film's groundbreaking visuals will be in for yet another ambitious effort, according to Lord, in the first half of the two-part sequel. Quote unquote, it is, as Phil said, a very ambitious sequel because we didn't want to use just didn't want to just sort of do the same thing again. Miller, who co-wrote the script and is producing the film, said, and so the idea that we'd be going to different dimensions really opened up the opportunity artistically to have each world have its own art style and to be able to push the folks at ImageWorks to develop a way to have each dimension feel like it was drawn by a different artist's hand. So, yeah, that's cool. I feel like if it's anything like the first film, it's going to be good. You know, if the script keeps up and the art style is great. Ooh, I just seen some more news for next week. Sorry, ever looking for news, folks. But yeah, so that's still the thing is still a thing, and I'm still looking forward to this movie whenever it drops, or both movies whenever they drop. Next up,
DC TV show Naomi introduced its own version of Superman. Has this already happened?
Mm-hmm. Well, yes.
So in an interview, what's that?
Yes and no. They showed a glimpse of Superman. Basically.
So in an interview with Good Day Sacramento, Sacratomato, as the schmooze once called Sacramento. So shout out to an old sports radio talk show host I loved listening to up until he retired recently. So in an interview with Good Day Sacratomato, star Casey Walfall said that the Man of Steel who appears in Naomi is not the same as the one played by actor Tyler Hoechlin in Superman and Lois. Naomi exists in her own universe, Walfall said. Tyler was not on set, but she's excited for fans to see their version of Superman. At this time, it's not totally clear who plays Superman in Naomi or just how he'll factor into the rest of season 1. I'm partially disappointed, but partially not, simply because, you know, the Arrowverse, to a certain extent, have all existed in their own worlds and only cross over when it's crisis time.
Right.
So I understand that.
Yeah, not only that, but the Arrowverse was separate from Supergirl until a certain point, and also Black Lightning, and then they folded all of them together when they got on the same network.
Right, during crisis time.
Yeah, well, that all did come together around that time. Yeah, but because remember, because Supergirl was on CBS and then ended up coming over to the CW.
Oh, that's right. You remember all that stuff. I blocked all that stuff out. I understand.
Yeah. So, but still, you're basically right. And then they all folded out abruptly, and it just so happened to be they did it around the crisis time. So yeah, what you said is still
right. So the next time they do a crisis in the Arrowverse or the whatever they choose to call it now that there is no more Arrow, they'll probably fold Naomi into.
We would hope. Yeah, we would hope. At the very least, the Superman and Lois show, tie those two together somehow, even though it's going to have its own Superman. So yeah, like that. We'll see. Oops. New superhero series starring David Ramsey in development at the CW. Speaking of the Arrowverse, or what was the Arrowverse. It looks like John Diggle will return to the franchise full time for Justice U, which is currently in development at the CW. Dig is set to transition from superhero to mentor as he helps new heroes figure out their powers and path. So it's basically Teen Titans Academy, aka Strange Academy, aka Hero High, aka My
Right.
Hero Academia. I don't know. Roll all of that into the same thing. Quote unquote, after spending years fighting alongside masked heroes, John Diggle embarks on a new mission to recruit 5 young humans to live undercover as freshmen at a prestigious university. I guess also
Oh,
for
it's
Young
My
Justice.
Hero crossed with 21 Jump Street.
Right, and I guess Young Justice.
Yeah.
Uh, there he will oversee their education and train them to become the heroes of tomorrow. Not to be confused with the Legends. Um, so yeah. Let's see. That's I think. Well, this article kind of goes into speculation of his own, I guess. Oh, and does say that yeah, Diggs been kind of still on the Arrowverse shows, because I guess he was on the Flash, Batwoman, Legends of Tomorrow, and Superman and Lois. So still been around, which makes sense because I think Black Knight showed up on that Flash, the last Flash thing. Not saying that those two equate, but I'm just saying they, Black Lightning show is over, Arrow's over, and they still have characters from the show still kind of coming through every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
So this article goes on to say that they need to do something about that Green Arrow tease that they did at the end of Arrow, which I very much doubt they're going to do. So that's wishful thinking. Anyway, next up.
Next up, after years of anticipation, Batgirl is finally headed to the DC Extended Universe, with Leslie Grace set to portray the iconic superheroine in an HBO Max exclusive film. Production is well underway on the live action Batgirl project, and now there is a first look at what Grace will look like in costume. On this past Friday, Grace took to social media to share the first official photo of herself in the costume. And you can check that out on the website that Roddykat is sharing.
Yep. Boom, there it is. Ta-da! Looks relatively comic accurate as far as I can tell, at least currently, anyway, as far as I can tell. So cool. I think this is a HBO Max only thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, exclusively later at a later date, exclusive on HBO Max. So guess check it out whenever. The new DC movie finally arrives on HBO Max. Then Justice movie has just hit HBO Max. That's pretty much what this is. So if y'all didn't know, Injustice is the animated version of Injustice: Gods Among Us, the video game turned book. That could have possibly been a better movie than Justice League if they had gone down that route, but they did not. Thanks, DC. But regardless, it's out there now. I did happen to see it on HBO Max. It is on. If I remember correctly, I feel like I've seen people saying that they kind of made a couple of changes on this one, a la what they did with the Killing Joke, aka not necessarily good changes. But I have
Mm-hmm.
not seen this one myself to know if that's the case. Like I know enough about Injustice to kind of be able to spot it at the very least, but I don't know. I haven't watched it yet. We'll see whenever I do watch it. But it's out there for folks who, if you have HBO Max. Next up.
All right. So Joss Whedon responded to Justice League accusations uh, for the first time in a sit-down interview with a reporter from New York Magazine, and you can read this article on Vulture. And we're not going to go into it. It's actually a pretty long read. I wanted to try to read it, and I only got about like a third of the way through. But apparently, Whedon does in fact respond, and he says some things that you just shouldn't say. And so a lot of people are taking Whedon to task for even if you believe this stuff you just shouldn't say in public.
Right.
So it's an incredible continuous fall for Joss Whedon in the eyes of genre fans and fandom.
Mm-hmm. And as I've seen people on Twitter pointing out, he's had two years uh, um, to get a story straight, and this is the kind of stuff he came out with. So yeah, it's kind of bad. Anyway, Peacemaker shot 5 episodes before changing vigilante actors. Apparently, so Peacemaker had a vigilante that was played by Chris Conrad, but was replaced by Freddie Stroma. And it seems as though, like I said, it says, they had already shot 5.5 episodes, according to James Gunn. But we're on different pages about certain things, and I don't think he wanted to continue on the series in the long run. So they brought in Freddie, 5.5 issues in, and they reshot all the scenes. So it's kind of a Back to the Future situation, if you've ever seen the movies that made us. And it's a good series.
I'm so glad that Roddykat can make that reference, because
yes.
I love those toys that made us, movies that made us from Nacelle Productions. Those are awesome.
Yeah, that Center Seat one also was pretty good, or at least from what I've seen of it, was also pretty good by them. So yeah, it's really good stuff. Y'all should definitely check it out. With the exception of that one I just mentioned, they're on Netflix. Check it out. But yeah, so apparently Screen Rant was the first person to ask about this the reshoots or whatever. So I guess they found out some kind of way. But yeah, apparently that was a thing. We didn't know about this previous to this. So cool. Next,
Supernatural alum Jensen Ackles says he and Warner Brothers are in the process of developing a new DC project together, though the actor is keeping tight-lipped on the details. During a recent episode of Smallville alum Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You podcast, Rosenbaum asked Ackles if there was one Marvel or DC movie he would like to be involved in, and he says, well, there is a DC property that he's currently developing and some other good partners that he's got his fingers crossed for. So that's a little bit of a scoop that Rosenbaum's Inside of You podcast got.
Yeah, he's tight-lipped about it because he said he wasn't gonna say anything about it. I'm kind of curious as to who it would be. I feel like it would be easy to say Green Lantern. This picture is saying Batman. I don't know if that's the article writer doing this, or or that is something that might have been hinted at in the course of the thing, but sure, whatever. I mean, well, Jensen Ackles has voiced Batman, so we do know that part, but we don't necessarily know if that's what the project is. So that might be why that picture was up if you're watching the video version. Anyway, Paramount Plus's Big Nate announces premiere date with official trailer. So the first 8 episodes of Big Nate will air on Paramount Plus on February 17th, with Jack Black appearing as a special guest star for the series premiere, titled "The Legend of Gunting." The animated original series is based off of best-selling children's books and a comic strip from author and cartoonist Lincoln Pierce, who serves as a series consultant. A first look of the series has aired on January 16th during halftime at Nickelodeon and CBS Sports' NFL Wildcard game on Nickelodeon. So by this point, you would have already seen that because that was days ago. And I remember the strip because I've watched the strip. I don't know if I'd watched the show, but that strip was actually kind of cool. I liked it. Next.
Paramount Plus announced that Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Lower Decks, and also ahead of its debut, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, have all been renewed for new seasons. In addition, the premiere date for season 2 of Star Trek Picard was revealed, as well as the on-air schedule for the rest of season 1 of Star Trek Prodigy and season 4 of Star Trek Discovery. So Picard comes back on March 3rd.
Yes.
And new episodes are going to drop weekly.
So possibly look forward to us talking about that when that happens.
We'll see.
We did do Treasure Edition on episode 1, which is back there in archives, so you can go check that out. Wait, did we do it? Yeah, we did.
We'll see. I mean, are you subscribing to Paramount Plus?
I am, yes.
Oh, I am not.
And that's because I forgot to cancel it. And plus, honestly, I did want to watch Discovery, which granted, if I use other means, I could probably do in elsewhere and not necessarily pay for it. But since I got it,
true.
we'll go ahead and go ahead and plunk down on, and a couple of these other Star Trek series also.
Sure.
While I still got it. Anyway, hopefully this is not a spoiler for Agent 70. But
What's that?
The next.
Oh no, I'm up to date.
Okay, cool. Demon Slayer channels Daredevil with Tingen's new power, which I don't know. This is kind of not news, but it is news, I guess, in a way. Because if you don't know, Demon Slayer is, it's a show. Y'all know what Demon Slayer is. I'm not even gonna get into all that. But basically, one of the ninjas' main thing is sound. Everybody.
Right, he's the sound Hashira.
Exactly.
So it's it's a interesting way, because we're all kind of wondering like what like the flame Hashira Rengoku that we saw in Mugen Train. His area of expertise is obviously fairly easy to render and portray, but we were all, I count myself among them when I say we all. I think most of the fandom was trying to figure out what they would do for Uzui, for Tengen's power,
right? Like
how to portray that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you on that, because I was kind of curious as well, like. Because we knew one of the characters got good hearing, so we probably wouldn't just go with that. Like everybody's got something about them. A couple of things about them, and in this case, this dude's got 3 wives and he can ping.
Right, and also he is so pretty that one of the villains is jealous.
Yes. But yeah, that whole thing, I was like, okay, this seemed like this was about to go to an end, and then that happened when that other character shows up. I'm like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that.
No, that was a surprise. Yeah. And we're not gonna belabor the point, because this episode really is not quite a week old, so there's still people catching up.
Exactly.
But this is one of those manga adaptations that actually has a complete set of source material.
Yes.
The manga is kind of long done now.
Yes.
So you can of course read ahead. Did we talk about this on the show last week or before, about how I'm kind of coming around to the idea of reading ahead in the manga anyway, because sometimes it's still a different experience, even though you're probably going to get spoiled on a lot of big plot points that would play a lot better if you were unspoiled in a sense by the manga. But at the same time, you're getting a different experience, and you're kind of looking at a different way of executing the story when you're ahead in the manga and then watching the anime catch up.
Exactly. Yeah, and like you said, yeah, they could very well still stray in parts on even though they will definitely take it from the manga, but they could stray in how they do it, like you said. So yeah, we don't necessarily know. But you did mention that you were reading stuff, and you were actually, I think you were reading My Hero ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely ahead. I'm up to date on My Hero, so I'm ahead on My Hero by a lot.
Right.
And I am trying to catch up on Attack on Titan.
Right.
I'm in the process of reading the Attack on Titan manga.
Right, but you've not read any Demon Slayer manga of the.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So,
no.
So you just have to get running on it. So if you were going to do that, and actually that's kind of a thing I was thinking about myself. Like, yeah, like you and I said that even that the first show of the year was like kind of catching up on some stuff or reading some other stuff. Like definitely getting into manga is something I've been kind of wanting to do.
Right. I mean, it's weird because catching on to new manga, I think, is still going to be a little difficult. And I feel like we're going to be like the MCU fans who catch up on the comics because of the movies. We're catching up on the manga because of the anime.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of the exciting part, though, because like we have a history with comic books, so we kind of know a lot of the stuff that's going on. Like seeing stuff that we don't know that we're seeing in animated form before the written stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of exciting.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, but that's my point. It's like we turn into the MCU fans as opposed to the comic book fans.
Right.
So.
Right.
But anyway, next up, Spy X Family.
Sure.
Cleans up in new TV anime visual goods. Okay. Some days the spy mission includes taking down governments, and other days it's mopping the floors of your apartment with your family. Those days are shown off in new goods for the Spy X Family TV anime, which features a new visual of the Forgers cleaning up their mission headquarters, their family home. Okay.
Yeah, that could be Spy Times Family. It could be Spy X Family. I'm not sure how to pronounce it because even with Hunter x Hunter, or it could be just Spy Family, but with the X in because like I know some people call Hunter X Hunter, Hunter x Hunter, and without the X in the middle, but or Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Regardless, like this is kind of a anime I'm kind of looking forward to.
This is merch. The goods they're talking about are merch. Right. Oh, okay.
But it's right because it's from the anime that's coming up, and I believe there's also manga out there for it. And I've heard good things about it, and I'm kind of curious about it. So basically, if you don't know the story about this, it's basically a family of spies who I don't think they know each other are spies. But they're a family, and they're or maybe they know that they're spies, but they still stuff about each other they don't know. And they have to come together as a family unit to do this mission.
So it's Mr. and Mrs. and Daughter Smith.
Kinda.
Interesting.
And they all have different skill sets. I think the daughter is a telepath, so she can read minds, and the father and the mom are both I guess badass spies in their own respects, and they have to come together as a family, even though they're not actual. There's no actual bond there.
Gotcha.
So it's interesting. I know a few people are looking forward to it. Like I said, I am too. So we'll see what happens. It's not necessarily cartoon or comic related, but it's we have dipped into anime and manga as we have shown. So sometimes it's good to check out some stuff. Speaking of, Shenmue anime premieres February 5th on Crunchyroll. So if folks don't know, Shenmue is a video game series. Kind of like Yakuza. Actually comes before the Yakuza series, but made by Sega. Just the same, and I guess it does share some DNA with the exception of some things. Some would argue it's a little slower. Definitely a different story than the Yakuza games were. Now there's an anime series about it after X amount of years because, well, to be fair, Shenmue 3 did come out last year before last, but still. But the story of Shenmue is the story of Ryo Hazuki, who is looking for his father's killer. So he's always looking for semen. That's an inside joke. Don't even, if you know about the series, you know what I'm talking about.
Right. I only know a little bit about it. My understanding was it was definitely a kind of a role playing video game.
It's
you have to make like choices and stuff, and
quick time events and stuff like that in it.
Right. So I have a cousin who's a gigantic fan. Same cousin who's on Craig of the Creek.
Nice.
who absolutely love that Shenmue Sega series of games.
Oh, actually, we got some Craig of the Creek news coming up. So maybe because it's part of it, but
that's funny. All right, so I've got the next story. So Amazon's upcoming Lord of the Rings series finally has a name, and it's apparently a good one. Set during the Second Age, thousands of years before the events of the Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, will tell the story of how the titular Rings of Power were first forged and divvied up amongst Middle-earth's races. The new series' title, along with a forging-focused teaser video, allude to how the rings' creation were both tied to the re-emergence of a long-dormant evil in the world and to the subsequent hardships that the world of men, elves, and dwarves would end up facing in the future. Okay.
So part of me was like, when I read this, I'm like, we already got that in the narration at the beginning of Fellowship of the Rings. We don't need this. But I also recognize that, this is going to go further into the power dynamic and all that kind of good mess in this. So I still don't think it's probably necessary, but whatever. I may actually watch it. Still need to watch a couple of Hobbit movies, but that's another situation. Last bit for the cinematic news. Speaking of what I just mentioned, Craig of the Creek is creating a spin-off, a new movie, and a fifth season. Which, by the way, the fourth season has just dropped on Cartoon Network, or at least 10 episodes or 8 episodes, because 2 were already out on Cartoon Network app. So if you have access to Cartoon Network, you can watch those. They're not season 3. I think just dropped on HBO Max. So if you haven't caught up on season 3, you can check HBO Max. Craig of the Creek is a great show. I love that show. And as we just heard, Agent 70 has a cousin who has ties to the show in more ways than one.
Yeah, like literally has a recurring named role.
Yes, which hasn't shown up in season 4 yet, but I'll let you know if he does. But so yeah, so 3 things. Craig of the Creek's getting a movie next year. Craig's little sister Jessica is getting her own spin-off TV show. I think it's a mini-series called Jessica's Little Big World. That's also coming next year. And season 5, do they already have a date for season 5? It just is also coming next year, 2023. So I'm glad, because like I said, this is a great show, and folks should watch it. I think that's all I'll say about that. It's a very fun show, and it's cool. And that is, and as the byline says, it's just like he drew it. Which, way to go, Charles Pulliam Moore. And that's it for the cinematic news. I'm going to say, before we get into the comic book news real quick, check out the clickbait sections. There's some stuff in there, such as the top 25 best anime series of all time according to IGN, if you're so interested in that. There's also solicitations from Marvel and a couple other places that have come out. Well, Marvel came out today, and I think Archie came out today. I don't know. DC hasn't still come out yet, but maybe by next week, excuse me, it will. But Marvel solicits for April is out there in the show notes if you're so inclined. There's also I almost didn't bring this up, but there's a Peacemaker story in the that in the clickbait section that's kind of rubbed me slightly the wrong way. In a way, I won't go into it, but it's basically about the opening number for Peacemaker. If you've seen the opening number of Peacemaker, which song I can't get out of my head, and you're interested, you can go check out that article. That said, let's go into the comic book news. Dark Horse Comic unveils a graphic novel from Oscar winners Trayvon Free and Martin Desmond Rowe, and I believe it is called Black Solstice. It will publish next December, and it'll be illustrated by Aramo Masa, and picks up following a winter solstice, which saw the world transformed when every black person in America gained superpowers, which kind of sounds familiar. Powers that gave an unthinkable amount of hope, but then disappeared the following morning. Now, with only 3 days before the next winter solstice, the entire nation is holding its breath, waiting to see if the powers will return. Okay, that's kind of a difference. And what I'm talking about is, like, there was a series called Black, which which is a world where black people only get are the only ones that get superpowers. So that's a differentiation. Like I said, December 20. That's coming next December.
Next up, in some sad news, prolific comic book historian and writer Ron Goulart died on January 13th at the age of 89. Goulart was an award-winning mystery and sci-fi writer, publishing a number of comic book stories for Marvel Comics. His work appeared in the pages of titles such as Vampire Tales, Journey into Mystery, and more. He died in after having had to move to assisted living for the last month. Goulart was also known for his works chronicling comic book history in published encyclopedias such as Ron Goulart's Great History of Comic Books, published in 1986, and the substantial comic book encyclopedia, The Ultimate Guide to Characters, Graphic Novels, Writers, and Artists in the Comic Book Universe, from 2004.
Okay. Next up, Marvel's Dark Age restores a legendary marriage. I have not been reading this, but So in Tom Taylor and Ibn Coelho's Dark Ages, the limited series that tells the story of what would happen if the entire world lost electricity and power, altering day-to-day life as it was known to everyone. Also a familiar storyline if you go to the DC camp. We're not going to talk about that. Villains in Europe scheme to bring about the apocalypse, causing refugees to flee the continent to Africa, where they are greeted by the X-Men Storm. Apparently in a preview for Dark Ages number 4, which I think came out last week. Storm is not only revealed to be still alive in this version of the Marvel Universe, but is married to her former lover, King T'Challa of Wakanda, the Black Panther. So, cool. Yay. And folks who know me well, know Roddykat well, knows that that's the basic reason why I pulled the story. Next.
Marvel continues to give more details about the shape of the X-Men line come April with the new Destiny of X era. The company is now teasing the next step in the world of Captain Britain and Otherworld as Tini Howard continues her work that began in the pages of her Excalibur run with artist Marcus Toe, with a new series, Knights of X, now with artist Bob Quinn. The series is going to follow Captain Britain, Betsy Braddock, as she fights back against Merlin and his right-hand man, King Arthur. And Betsy's going to be aided in her quest by Richter, Shatterstar, Gambit, Rachel Summers, Bay, the Blood Moon, Gloriana, and 2 other surprise characters. Okay.
Yeah, I guess Shogo is going to stick around also without Jubilee. Or at least according to this, presumably by this cover. So, okay. Marvel's Avengers, X-Men, and Eternals War kicked off with Captain America versus Kingo, which we alluded to earlier. This is coming from the solicits that, kind of coming from the solicits, but we already knew about Judgment Day was the thing that's coming, and that's the 3-way war between the Avengers, Eternals, and X-Men, as said. And in April's solicitations for Eternals 11 suggest that the conflict is getting a lot closer, with the cover of the issue even including a special cover logo stating Judgment Day is coming. And if this is the cover, yeah, it shows Captain America, Steve Rogers, and Kingo from the Eternals seemingly squaring off, seemingly around Avengers Mountain, which we know they're going to be going to, which at some point, which they may be already close to now that I think about it. Next.
Captain America, Sam Wilson, and Steve Rogers land 2 solo Marvel series. So this is highlighted in the new solicits that just came out. Marvel Comics has announced these 2 new Captain America titles, which see both Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers taking on the title. As revealed by Entertainment Weekly, a new one-shot titled Captain America number 0 releases in April. The title, which will be by writers Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, former guests of the Comic Book Chronicles, and Tochi Onyebuchi and artist Mattia De Ulis explore why there are 2 Captain Americas. Okay.
I mean, we don't feel like at this point we don't need to do that, but sure, yeah. There was also a trailer, which I believe is attached to this article that I saw on YouTube with this announcement. So you should check out the trailer. It's kind of cool. The most punk rock Spider-Man finally gets his own Marvel series. So yes, Spider-Punk is getting his own book. It is a 5-part miniseries that's going to be written by Cody Ziegler and artist Justin Mason. Let's see. So far, the anarchist Arachnid has taken on authoritative overlord incarnations of the Green Goblin, Vulture, and Kang the Conqueror. He's teamed up with his Spider Brethren several times over, but we'll get a more focused look on him and his dystopian world. And then the article goes on to talk with Cody Ziegler about the whole thing. So yeah, Spider-Punk's getting his own miniseries, and it's I think it's in April. Yes, so you can check that out if you care. Next.
Starting this April, Marvel Comics is reprinting its hit 2017 original graphic novel Deadpool Bad Blood as a limited series. Originally published On May 17th, 2017, Deadpool Bad Blood was the Merc with a Mouth's very first original graphic novel. It was written by Chris Sims and Chad Bowers from a story by Deadpool co-creator Rob Liefeld. Okay. Liefeld did, in fact, pencil the book. So, yeah, this is them breaking it up and making it a serialized miniseries. That's cool.
Yeah. I know I've met. I think we've had them on the show, have we not? I know I've met one of them. I think I've met both of them now that I think about it, because they were here. They were local to me. But
Chris Sims and Chad Bowers.
Yeah, I can't remember. If we
Yeah, I
had them
haven't.
on the show.
I don't think they've been guests on the show.
Yeah, but I know I've met them. I've met them. So
That's
yeah,
cool.
Whether we had them on the show, it's going. That seems cool. And I've seen them at conventions also. But yeah. Anyway, so that's cool for them. I believe they also did that X-Men '97 series from a couple of years back, which was not bad. Jonathan Hickman and Chris Bachalo kick off a new Moon Knight anthology. Obviously just in time for the show to come out. Moon Knight Black, White, and Blood will have short stories by Jonathan Hickman and Bachalo, Mark Guggenheim and George Fornes, and Mariwa Ayodele and artist Doton Akanda. Hickman and Bachalo's story will introduce a new Moon Knight taking place sometime in the near future. But apparently unrelated to the recently introduced other Fist of Khonshu, Hunter's Moon, introduced in the main Moon Knight story. That's the recent book that we were talking about earlier. So yeah, that's going to be, well, it's in the solicit, so it's going to be in April, April, but not exact date. So next up.
A new entry in DC's Sandman universe imprint entitled Nightmare Country will release in April, focusing on the deadly nightmare known as the Corinthian. First teased on the DC Twitter account and now fully unveiled by the Hollywood Reporter, Nightmare Country focuses on the Corinthian era, on the Corinthian, that is, as he travels across America on the hunt for another nightmare, coming into contact with everyone from white supremacists to two deadly killers dubbed Mr. Agony and Mr. Ecstasy, who will serve as new players in the Sandman mythos. The series, written by James Tynion IV and penciled by Lisandro Esteran, also features guest artists every issue to draw dream sequences. Okay.
He probably won't be rich or leathery. Which is a callback.
The Corinthian. That's funny.
Which is a callback for people of a certain vintage. Yeah. DC announces plan to kill the Justice League by murdering major characters, apparently. This is ahead of the April solicits, but I do know this is going to come out there. So according to Entertainment Weekly, Justice League 75, written by Joshua Williamson with art by Rafa Sandoval and Alejandro Sanchez, will be the final issue of the series, and it will culminate, in the death of the premier DC superhero team. And apparently a bunch of characters are going to die off in the battle here. So, quote unquote, it's very serious. It's an interesting opportunity to do this on the 30th anniversary of the death of Superman, which happened in Superman 75. We get to take Justice League 75 and do Death of the Justice League. We want people to understand this is serious and this is going to have a major impact in the DCU going forward. Also, I feel like this may or may not have something to do with Future State. Because I feel like we got shades of like, hey, the Justice League are dead and then or gone, or something happened to the Justice League in Future State when we got that new team of Justice League around that time, but we never got to find out what actually happened to them. I am assuming this is it. Now, whether they planned it that far in advance and that is indeed the case, don't know. And I don't think anything here is saying such of the case, but I think that was one of the few plots that didn't seem to be resolved in Future State at this point. But Justice League 75 goes on sale April 19th.
The worst part of this story?
What's that?
Death of Superman was 30 years ago this year. Jeez. Jeez.
I know.
And your black and the black polybag comic is probably only worth $5 for you if you bought one or two or 20.
Oof. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you have one?
I don't think I ever got one. I remember being in a bookstore reading The Death of Superman, but I wasn't. But I didn't actually collect it or had the foresight to get it. I don't remember.
Got it. No, I was about to say I got 2 copies. I got one to keep and one to open.
Nice.
But I definitely did not want to invest anything more than that.
Right.
For a high school kid, so it's not like I had dough. I was just like, you know what? Let me get 2.
Right, because thinking that it was going to be worth something, and you know, may or may not realizing at the time is a holy hill. They killed Superman, and people did not like this.
Mm-hmm.
Which is actually.
I mean, at the end of the day, as a comic book reader and a collector at that time, even though I was still only in high school, I've been reading for a while, obviously.
True. Right.
So I knew what it meant for something to be worth X number of thousands of dollars, and for something to be worth $5.
Right.
So I knew it wasn't going to be worth that much, but at the same time, the novelty is worth getting.
Oh, no doubt.
It's absolutely worth getting a copy for the novelty. So, no regrets on my end, because I didn't try to invest in it for my future savings,
Right. And actually, speaking of, if folks out there who are young enough not to know, because there definitely are people younger than 30 years, know about the story behind the death of Superman, you can get a glimpse of it if you watch that Slugfest docu-series that's on Roku channel.
Right. Weezy Simonson had a hand in that.
Yes, a very big hand in it, apparently. So that was an amusing thing to find out about, because that part I did not know about.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, moving right along.
Next up, this following article is just a preview for Green Lantern number 10. John Stewart was a Marine and architect of Green Lantern. Now John is the only one who can stop the Lightbringer's plans, but in order to do so, he must choose a new path forward, one that will change his role in the DC Universe forever. Back on Oa, Joe Moline faces the formidable Anti-Guardian. So I've been trying to keep up with the latest rendition of Green Lantern, and it's funny that Hal is still being kept in reserve.
Okay.
And Hal is essentially running around on Earth, while on Oa and doing all the other kind of related Green Lantern stuff, John Stewart and some of the some of the newer Green Lanterns are front and center in the pages of the Green Lantern book.
Right. Hal's with the Justice League at this point, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I haven't been keeping up with that book since Bendis took over and left, and Joshua Williams has gone now.
That's what I thought, because he's one of the few Lanterns that still has a working ring.
Right. Right. Based on what I guess that's also a future state thing that they're still cleaning up, I guess. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I like you because I know you've been reading it at first, and you said I should read this, and I will definitely.
Right, just because you're a fan of that Joe Moline character and that new Teen Lantern character, so I figured you'd want to catch up on those characters.
Yeah, and John Stewart. So yeah, definitely, I definitely will. Next up though, yeah, and I think that Green Lantern came out this week, by the way, if anybody's interested. Wizards of the Coast announced a new form of secret lair drop for Magic the Gathering themed around the star signs. The latest limited edition sets, titled The Astrology Lands, aims to take the various regions of Magic the Gathering and pair them with an astrological reading. Each month will see the release of a new secret lair based on around the corresponding star sign. Will Roddykat get the one that's for his sign? I don't know. He's put enough money into that stuff, but we'll see. Let's see. Wizards of the Coast have assured fans that if the developer says out any of the sets before December 23rd, 2022, more copies will be printed to ensure players can still find what they're looking for. So basically, there was that. There's like these are like small sets around a theme, and they sell them for they 2 different versions, foiled and not foiled, and these are playable in Magic the Gathering. And there are themed. There was like a set based on the Dungeons and Dragons animated series. Yes, I did get that one. As well as another one that escapes me that I ended up getting, and they've been putting us out. And I know fans of Magic Together are like not don't care too much about a lot of this stuff because it feels like a money grab, which it pretty much kind of is. But they're apparently still buying them because these are still selling. Take that as you will. Next up,
My Hero Academia has been on the video game scene for some time now, having released 2 pretty successful fighters and a solid mobile game over the past few years. The next My Hero Academia game looks to switch up the formula by bringing the series into the battle royale scene of multiplayer titles. So, I gotta open this. Article. Okay.
you don't have to.
No, it's just that the summary we have here doesn't go into the actual game. It talks about the previous games.
Yeah, that's true. But I think I did that for a reason.
So the free-to-play battle royale game is going to be on consoles, and you team up to win a 24-player rumble in multiplayer action. So this is in the Fortnite vein,
or PUBG, or Apex Legends, etc., etc. There's a few
All right.
games, Knockout City, etc. So yeah, this is the one tied to My Hero. Oh, that Pokemon one also, but whatever.
All right. So this is going to be on PC, PS4. It's got PS5, Switch, and Xbox One.
No, that sounds right. They're still making PS4 games, so I'm not surprised by that. Plus, it's still kind of hard to find PS5s for a lot of people.
That's true. That's true.
So no, this is not. So,
although I did get an email from GameStop that they're getting a bunch of PS5s, PS5 pack bundles coming in.
Yes. Oh wait, you trying to get one?
No, but I got an email.
Oh. Yeah, because I'm about to say, if you're looking for, I know a guy.
Yeah,
know a guy
there's going to be bundles. There's going to be bundles dropping today at GameStop. So if you're interested, Roddykat.
No, because that's how I got mine a while ago. So
there it is.
But I do have one already. So yeah, and those things kind of come and go. So they have been kind of putting the market in, but given the Xbox news of recent late, I don't know how much that's going to matter.
Why is that? What news is that?
Xbox bought Activision. I mean, Microsoft bought Activision for a.
Oh yeah, Activision Blizzard.
Yeah, for a good amount of money. So which means Call of Duty, Overwatch, Warcraft, all of.
Oh, you think they're gonna make them Xbox exclusive?
Some people are suggesting they could do that. I don't think that would be to their best interest to do so. And I know a couple of people who would want that to be the case. Like, I don't care about Call of Duty. They could do that with that one all they want to. Some of those other franchises I would have a problem with, especially if it comes down to like Diablo or whatnot. But I don't think they're going to do that. It wouldn't be to their best interest, but they could, because they have been doing that with. They also bought Bethesda recently, or fairly recently, and they definitely have been doing that, with the exception of like one game. But that game already had an outside a prior commitment, basically. So that's when that one kind of got into it. They could. We don't know. We'll see. We don't know. But it was big news. It was big news lately, which is kind of outside the preview here, but I feel like it's at some point it's probably going to impact some kind of way. Either way, anyway, speaking of My Hero Academia fans are smitten by the Invisible Girl's face reveal. Now, you said you've read ahead, and I don't want to go too far into this if you don't know, because this is about the manga, so I don't know if you know about this one.
What issue?
I don't know. I don't know if it says. Oh, chapter 337.
337. I thought I read this. Let me see.
Okay, because I don't want to spend you on something that you haven't gotten to yet.
I could have sworn I read this.
Okay. But basically, there was a reveal of a character who has a similar name as a Fantastic Four member.
Oh yeah, it's a slightly distorted look at her. Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah. Apparently, some people whatchamacallit, filled in what it might look like with some artificial coloring online. I did read this because I know I think what they're up to is 340. Or 338 or 339, so I definitely passed by this. So I think I I bumped too hard on this.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah. I did see this.
Okay, good. Like I said, I didn't want to spoil anything for you, but
No. It is okay.
okay, cool. Apparently, excuse me, I'm reading this other article that came up on the side about Demon Slayer character that we just talked about, but that's neither here nor there, and probably won't go into show notes. Let's see. But yeah, so yeah,
It's actually up to 339.
okay, cool. Wow, you actually read through all of that?
Yeah.
I mean,
They go quickly because I've already watched, like I breezed through the ones that I that are covered in the anime.
Right.
But let's say like the most recent 75, it took me a while because they're newer. They're not covered by the manga, the anime, that is.
Sure. Not yet anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Or seemingly not yet. So okay. But yeah, so that's that. And My Hero fans who, if you're caught up, you know, or caught up with the manga specifically, know what the deal is about that. Next up. That's you, actually.
Oh, is it? Sorry about that.
No, sir.
Because I got tied up in making sure that I was up to date with that. I knew I was up to date with that, but
right.
I just didn't bump on it because it was, because the way it's depicted in the manga, right. It's so faint. So, comic book publisher Boom Studios has officially announced Alice Ever After, an upcoming 5-part series that puts a new twisted spin on the story of Alice in Wonderland. Set to launch in April, Alice Ever After comes from the creative team of writer-artist Dan Panosian, artist Giorgio Spalletta, and colorist Fabiana Mascolo. Issue number 1 features main cover art by Panosian, as well as variant cover art by Jenny Frison and Adam Hughes. This darkly surreal series follows an adult Alice who has essentially become addicted to Wonderland, using it as a way to escape the unfortunate realities of her life.
Interesting. Okay. Last but not least, Dynamite to publish 4 50-cent issues, not 50 Cent the rapper. This April. So it says here that coming April, there's going to be 4 major key issues getting reprinted at a near unbeatable price, according to this article, for Free Comic Book Day, including The Boys, Vampirella, and more. Let's see. These 4 books all celebrate the past, present, and future of Dynamite's 15 plus years, and ahead of the season 3 debut of The Boys on Amazon Prime, and both The Boys number 7 and Herogasm number 1 will be available. Let's see. Ash Williams' Army of Darkness versus the Reanimator number 1. Vampirella Dracula Unholy number 1 also. And I think that's it. And it all looks like they're going to be priced at 50 cents. So cool. I don't think they've done anything like that in a good while. Unfortunately, I wish it was for some stuff that I would be interested in.
G-Unit.
I know,
right? All right, and we're done.
We are done. Let's get one last ad read in, shall we?
Our last ad read of the night is for Funko, Fun at First Sight. It's your home for exclusive collectibles such as their world-famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel including t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise such as their custom DIY pop figures, art books, and skateboards. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. To place your first order with 10% off, and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today.
All right, let's blow this pop stand and go home. Thanks each and every one of you folks for coming out here tonight to this here show. We appreciate you as always. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for bearing with us through the technical difficulties.
Yeah.
The gremlins are always out every once in a while.
Indeed. Yeah. Again, audio version, folks will possibly have a little bit of editing to look forward to, but the video version will stand as it is. So, I have been Roddykat. I've been Roddykat. Roddykat on Twitter, Roddykat on News Nerds Need on Twitter, and CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PC_Dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, PopCultureNetwork.com, and all those umbrella sites therein. Tim, DOGG98 on Twitter, the Osiris that is ish. You can also find him at CB Chron, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. You can also find him at The Click Nation on Twitter. That's the KLIQNATION, theclicknation.com. But also, more importantly, you can find Tim over at comicbook.com, writing his face off. You can find this here show on the Coastal Podcast Network, the CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us in your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal Podcast Network's SoundCloud page.
Make sure to hit like, subscribe, and leave us 5-star reviews.
Yeah. You can find us recording every Thursday night, unless there's movie protocol, on the YouTube channel of The Click Nation. That's youtube.com/TheClickNation and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles. And yeah, definitely, go subscribe to the twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles. We keep saying we're gonna do some more streaming over there, and I plan to do that at some point soon, hopefully. And hopefully get some of the other guys to do some streaming on there also, in addition to the show. So, folks, all right, that's it. We're out of here. Thanks for coming out. We will see you all next week. Got another Book of Boba Fett. Probably a little bit more on Peacemaker, and I think that's about it for right now. Maybe talk a little bit more about Naomi if need be, but I think that's pretty much about it. This has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One. Wakanda forever!